Hello, are we live? How are we all doing? How are we all doing today? Hello, welcome. We are indeed live. For once, you can actually see that it says on air. I don't know why, the lighting, the movement of the sun determines whether or not it's worth switching this on. I normally have it off, because when I turn it on, it just becomes a blank white rectangle. What I might do is leave it on, so I wear out the battery a bit, so it's slightly dimmer, and actually shows up on camera in future. I don't know. I've also got the light here turned down. I don't know if that looks bad. I just figure, like, it's full daylight. Maybe I should move my curtain, actually. But anyway, how are we today? How are we doing? Because today, at long last, I am really late to this. Like, so late to this. I meant to do this like a month ago, but I've been busy. What can I say? We are finally here to do the tier list of the third series of Doctor Who, and I'm very excited because this tier list, oh my gosh. You guys think I was being generous before? I'm going to be struggling here because, like, I've really tried being critical, but man, this show is so good. But I've got my notes here, if I actually just bring them up. I got everything in order. And we're going to make this tier list, and it's probably going to take me like 4 hours. Something I probably should mention, actually. Where's my tier list? Where's my notes? I can't find them. Something I should mention is that you can see I'm not wearing headphones. Don't worry, I will put them on. I just realized the battery was a bit low, so I wanted to let them charge for as long as I could. I'm definitely stalling. But also, I'm on my own today. We're going solo. I was thinking it would be pretty fitting, right, for the kind of trilogy if I could get my older brother Sam on this episode, because I had Tasha in the first one with Ethan, and then I had my brother Joe for Series 2. But for Series 3, even though it's my older brother Sam's favourite, and I could probably guess most of what he might say, I'm not sure. He's kind of busy. He's an actor, and he's currently, like, in a whole different town, miles away, in, like, a travelling show right now. Long story. So he's not really available to join. Thinking about it now, even if we had done, like, a Zoom call, or even gotten, like, a comment from him for just a few minutes of the stream, like, there just wouldn't have been time. I didn't make the time, and, I just remembered that I meant to do that, but it doesn't matter. I might get him on for Series 4 or something, I don't know. But Series 3, it looks like I'm all on my own, because everybody's busy, which is totally fine, and no one's had time to watch the show either, which, you know, it's fair enough. I've taken my sweet time getting here, but finally we're here. And I was thinking about this, you know, at the pace I'm going, at the rate I'm going, by the time the 60th rolls around, I'm not going to be done with Series 10. Unless I go on an absolute friggin' binge in the summer, I'm only going to be up to, like, Series 5 or 6, which is not good. And what I'm thinking is, well, really, the things that are most important for me to rewatch are all of the Russell T Davies, David Tennant era stuff, right? Because it's them who are coming back. And also, it's that stuff that I'm the least familiar with. And now that I'm actually re-familiarizing myself with this in detail, watching some of these episodes for the first time in half a decade, a full decade, I'm thinking I don't need quite as much of a refresher on the Moffat era quite so much. And also, honestly, like, I'm beginning to question how good those episodes are now. Because when I was younger, my family would always go on about how everything was better in the Russell T era. And I didn't understand, because I was too young to really review things critically. I kind of just enjoyed everything. But now that I'm thinking about what I do remember, I'm like, how the hell? I'm going to be so disappointed when I get to Series 5 onwards, because I'm going to watch it and be like, man, this is nowhere near as good as Series 3. But we'll see. I mean, I might be disappointed by Series 4. Who friggin' knows? But we'll see. I don't know. Generally, I mean, you know, there's a reason why, you know, the Tennant and Russell T era is so popular, and dare I say overrated. I mean, it's rightfully earned its place, you know, as something that has stuck with a lot of people more strongly than other periods of Doctor Who, because it was just so well crafted. I still think it's kind of overrated, but I don't know. Maybe it's not, because I've rewatched Series 3, and it's almost perfect. Like, it's literally almost perfect. It actually blows my mind. Anyway, we're gonna get on with this now, but I'm gonna just let me just move my curtain. I feel like actually this is a poor lighting choice. I should probably put this on. Oh, if I just move this over to this side, like so, that might look better. I don't know. Do you want to block out the light, live in the darkness? Oh man, this thing's a bit uncomfortable actually. What do we think? I mean, it's using more energy. This is fine, honestly. I'm happy with this. But, guys, if the audio or the lighting isn't to your liking, please do let me know. Oof. And now that I can definitely verify that literally no one is watching, and the only people who are ever probably going to see that maybe are people watching the playback after it was live. If you're wondering about the intro music, to monetize the stream, because I want to do that, I had to like mute that if it was silent or if it was really distorted. It's for monetization reasons. But when I first go live, I can do it. It's like whatever, because the monetization is you know, it's different. It's not really a problem. I want that music, man, for as little time as I can get. Okay, now this feels really dark. I'm gonna turn my light on. Let's do this. So there's nothing else for me to say. Here's today's question of the day and charity shout out. I'll talk more about those later. And I've got my ambient non-gaming background music. Also, this is unrelated, but I recently reorganized my Spotify library massively. This needs to move into there. That's a work in progress, though. I should create a new folder for works in progress. But, like, my Spotify, guys, I have, like, completely redone it. And I know I probably shouldn't show too much of my Spotify because it is like a fairly private thing, and like if I pop out the friends tab, it'll show like people whose pages like I don't want revealed to the public necessarily. Not that I'm a bit doxed, strictly speaking, but it's like family members and stuff, because people can find people through other people. But like this is my Spotify, and I recently spent hours just reorganizing the whole thing because there's so many, you know, there's just so much music in my library, and it's like such a mess, and I hadn't like, you know, sorted it out in years. I found like albums and plays and stuff that were absolutely just buried for years, in my library. It was absolutely stupid. But yeah, I don't mind showing all of this off though. Like, a lot of people are probably going to look at this and think, okay, that's your music. What's the worst thing? I'm not going to get bullied for whatever music I listen to. More likely, you either know it and you also like it, or you don't know it and you're like, huh, I don't care, which is perfectly valid. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here. Let's get comfy and get on with this. So, yeah, we got some Labyrinthine playing, which is pretty nice. Love how that works. Yeah. Alright. Oh, man, I'm sorry, my back kind of hurts. So here are my notes on everything Series 3. This is probably going to take a long-ass while, especially since I'm the only one talking. But, you know, whatever. Well, maybe it won't. But yeah, I've got my, you know, 10th Doctor episodes tier list here with all the Series 3 episodes grouped together. And I'm just going to go through and talk about my review of them. Rewatching these in 2023. My honest opinion on each and every one of these episodes. So yeah, let's get on with it. So Series 3 is the one with Martha and the Master and all kinds of stuff. Just gonna adjust my monitor slightly. There we go. But yeah, Series 3 is where we also have the legendary music, All the Strange Creatures, which, let me actually find it. I have it on my Spotify. Yeah, we have, no, that's the wrong one. Sorry, my Spotify is like an actual mess. It's disgusting. And I'm still getting used to the new UI. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, this song, frickin' banger. Holy crap. Banger track. Can't get enough of it. But anyway. So, let's just go through my notes. Smith & Jones, alright, episode 1, kicking off the series. Just as a reminder, guys, the reason I'm not including The Runaway Bride is because of the way the BBC iPlayer groups the Christmas specials. It's quite logical, actually. The first Christmas special is at the end of Series 1. It doesn't start with a Christmas special. So, the Christmas special at the end, I include as part of the series. So this is going to include Voyage of the Damned. Even though Voyage of the Damned actually has the series forward for music and like the production, again, the Christmas specials are always produced separately. It's kind of weird. I don't know. Anyway, so Smith & Jones. I like this episode. The best, most important thing it did was introduce Martha Jones. And thankfully she's quite a standout companion, very different from Rose, but also very similar in some other ways. Normally I don't read this out word for word, so I'm going to skim over it, but if you want to read my full thoughts, this is just like what I wrote down at the time, so it might be a bit disorganized. But what I love about this series is that it gave us Martha Jones. Rewatching this, I've realized that all these years, Martha Jones has been an underrated gem in the cast of characters in this universe. She's, like, actually one of, if not the best companion the Doctor's had in, like, ages. Like, one of the best in, I don't know how long. And, like, she's so underrated. Because, like, Rose had this big arc thing, you know, spanning series. But it's like, man, oh, she, like, I just love her dynamic with the Doctor. She's such a breath of fresh air. Because, like, she's, you know, much more intelligent and capable, like, starting off. Like, I'm glad we got Rose first, because Rose was as ordinary and as average as you could possibly get for, like, a Londoner in, like, that kind of English-British background. But then when it came to Martha, you know, because it was the third series, you know, we started off with someone who was a lot more independent, a lot more kind of strong-willed, and it was, I don't know, such a breath of fresh air. She's so different. She's snarkish, more bold. What else did I write here? And also, yeah, crucially, and this is refreshing because, man, the romance gets weary in Series 2, if I'm being honest. She doesn't have this romantic interest in the Doctor. Kind of, at least at first. She does, but it's different. But it's funny. I like how, you know, she kind of mocks his date invite. And also, I mentioned, it avoids a creepy outlook of the Doctor picking up girls hundreds of years younger than one after the other. Didn't write that properly. Because, like, that's kind of what he does. And there was even, like, a commentary on this. Man, is it me or is the music a bit loud? Oh, you guys can't hear the music. I just realized I didn't change the audio input. That sucks. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I feel the music's just a bit loud. I'm kind of shouting over it. I'm going to turn that right down. Yeah, that should be good. Oh, man, you've come in just for the end. Whatever. If you want to listen to this song, screw it. I'll go back to the start. But yeah, there's even a commentary on this in, like, one of the Pond Life shorts or something, where, like, Amy finds all the previous companions the Doctor had, and it's like, man, it's kind of weird that he has all these young girls, one after the other, traveling with. It's like, man, I'm kind of glad that, I don't know, they're trying to dodge that. But yeah, like, Martha has this really hilarious dynamic with them. But as for Smith and Jones, generally, I thought you know, again, the basics of kind of plot, like, the story, does it make sense, is it logical, one plot point to another, the pacing was fine, it was well thought out. Again, I like how the Plasmavore and the Jadoon were, like, kind of gradually revealed, and it was, like, unclear what exactly was going on, and it was, like, revealed step by step. All of the major threads and characters are subtly introduced before the hospital is taken off Earth. That's when the story really kicks into motion. I like that we see all of, like, Martha's family. That whole sequence is just beautiful, because it's very important for the overall series, as well as the episode, and her character, and a lot of things. You know, obviously, Finnegan as well, we see her in the hospital, and then we see, of the Doctor, you know, just like that, and he takes his tie off, yeah. And yeah, now, the story was quite reliant on sci-fi MacGuffins, as you would call them. I think I've spelled that correctly. But the vague sciencey tomfuckery was excellent. It was excellent. Adequately, but concisely explained in every instance. The H2O scoop, I thought, was pretty cool, pretty unique. The rain is going up, and Martha's, is it her sister? I can't remember the name. Is it Tish? I don't remember. But, like, they're looking up, and it's like the water's going up, and it's like a weird thing, and it's just like a rain cloud, like a cartoon over the building, and then there's a lightning. It's such a great effect. The way they did the effects, again, Doctor Who, in, like, the 2000s, was brilliant at using, like, a low budget to create decent effects. Some of them were crap, and I'll talk about that later. But, like, the effect of the hospital, and they literally just had, like, really bright white lights outside the windows, and then just shook the camera and got everyone to, like, move around. Like, it's such a clever low-budget technique, and it works seamlessly, because combined with some of the background CGI, which looks better in Series 3, I can tell the CGI improved a bit from Series 2, like, yeah, it's just good to see. And of course, like, thematically, this is a really nice story for, like, an introduction to the Doctor, for a new companion. It's like Martha's first step beyond her ordinary Earth life into outer space, across, you know, time and space, is just the moon, which is, like, the next closest thing, right? It's the closest astronomical body. So I thought, just thematically, that's a really nice, logical choice to have, you know, for a companion's first adventure off Earth. And then obviously there's the Jadoon. I thought they were pretty menacing. They kind of ticked the antagonist boxes, although they weren't exactly the opponents, which is interesting. They were, like, mercenaries who are kind of not really the enemy, but like were a threat. I don't know. I think it's interesting how there was a complicated relationship between them, and like sometimes they were like, you know, hostile, sometimes they weren't, depending on the exact point in the plot. And again, the costumes I thought were very authentic and inspired. It's fascinating how they're like the big rhino heads, but then they got the kind of like they got a kind of like skirt thing that almost looks like Spartan, the folds on it, and like the big armor, and I don't know. I just thought they were really unique, very very interesting, and the way the mask or the costume was done, it looks so good. Meanwhile, the slabs were lame as hell. I don't know how radiation kills pure leather, why the Doctor was so willing to kill, because, like, I don't know. This is the thing, right? The Doctor's a bit of a hypocrite, and I realise this series. He has this, like, moral code that he sort of ignores and violates, like, every now and then, just because, you know, he feels like it. Also, I just realised, presentation mode. I always go presentation mode. There we go. That looks so much cleaner. I knew I was missing something. Look at this. Oh, so much cleaner. But yeah, as we were. But yeah, I don't know, I just thought, like, is this his dark side, you know, Time Lord Victorious beginning to emerge, a kind of hints of it, because of the lonely and detached perspective of, you know, the universe and humanity that he's, you know, now got thanks to the absence of Rose. Because again, the beautiful thing about the companion dynamic in Doctor Who is that the companion is always there to ground the Doctor. Without the companion, the Doctor is just like a vengeful god. But with a companion, he's more grounded, and his humanity is kind of, you know, manifested better, because he really tries to be a good man, but good men don't need rules, and the Doctor has many rules, and he breaks them, as we know. Again, man, this ties back into all the River Song stuff in the Moffat era, but not worried about that yet. But yeah, I just thought the slabs were lame as hell. They were just such a weird, like, uninspired addition to the story, but whatever. But yeah, I like how the story is kind of tied up, start to finish, with Martha's family just being super chaotic, because while Rose had an interesting and kind of fairly relatable thing, right, you know, single mum, boyfriend, kind of like, you know, very average, working class Londoner life. Martha's family I found more relatable, because it resembles my own family a bit more. Now, thankfully, my parents are happily married and not, you know, my dad doesn't have a girlfriend, but the chaos of, like, all these older and younger siblings is something I relate to. I have a younger sister, 2 older brothers, and parents, and a grandma, and, like, it's funny. And I just love how much just character is in it. Like, these characters, all of Martha's family members, you know, they only have, like, a few seconds of screen time, really. In the first episode, they have maybe a minute. Tish gets slightly more, I think. But, like, there's so much about them that's immediately clear, because the script and the direction is, like, uses this moment to define and establish character in a really effective way. It's like, you know, the phone call sequence. Again, it's just brilliant. It's like, oh, hold on, gotta put you on hold, next person's calling. It's like one after the other, and you get a really glimpse into, like, you know, just kind of what Martha has to deal with, because, like, her family, it can be annoying and frustrating, but ultimately, they're also, like, her nearest and dearest, and that plays, you know, a big part into the series finale. It's just, again, the structure of the series is genius. Yeah, tragically funny, domestic conflict, and it's nicely juxtaposed with an immediately calm scene afterwards with the Doctor. And it kind of gives you a subtle push as to, like, why Martha would be so willing to travel with the Doctor, because there's only certain kinds of people who go into the TARDIS. Some people decline, like Joan, who we'll talk about later. But yeah, like, it's like, you know, Martha, she doesn't hate her family or anything, but, like, you can see how weary she probably is deep down with it all, and she's, like, the most, I guess, sensible and reserved. And honestly, I relate to that. In the family dynamic, I am the Martha of my own family. So I don't know. It's just like Martha's way more relatable than I remember her being when I was younger. Again, I think I subconsciously felt all of this when I was younger. But I was like, when I watched this, I was literally 6, 7 years old. So like, I didn't mentally appreciate all the nuances as I do now. But yeah, and then the ending, the way it opens up the series is nice. It's like just one trip for saving my life, because Martha helped save Doctor's life. Because again, she's not totally useless and just following him everywhere, which is really nice to see. It's a good companion. But yeah, it's a nice dynamic. It's like they have a weirdly banterous and almost flirty but not dynamic. I don't know, it's hard to describe. But yeah, I like how it's like, it starts off just one trip. And the way Martha reacts to the TARDIS to everything, it's a classic. It's like, oh, there's the companion rat to the TARDIS being bigger on the inside, and the, you know, the, like, the time travel and all that kind of stuff. Anyway. But yeah, my only complaints about this episode are some of the weird sci-fi elements. The Doctor shaking all the radiation in his body into a shoe, I thought, and then placing it into regular bin seems irresponsible and illogical. I don't think that's how radiation works, and I'm not sure how Time Lord biology could explain that, and it seems really dumb. It's also never explained how he can survive without any oxygen, although this doesn't really bother me because I figure, well, he's a Time Lord, right? He's got a bit of plot armor when it comes to what he can physically tolerate, because he's got 2 hearts, right, and he's like got like psychic powers. He's not human, so I can accept it, but it's like that was never actually explained. How does he survive without oxygen? Can he, like, breathe anaerobically in depth for longer? Or, like, I don't know. Does he use regeneration energy or something? I don't know. It's just a weird thing. And thinking about it, it doesn't really matter. But also then, Finnegan as well, the antagonist of the story. The Plasma Vor. Honestly, she was kind of just cartoonishly evil and shallow. I felt like her motive really wasn't clear, and she just seemed, like, needlessly spiteful for the sake of the plots and stakes. And there's definitely some missing context about the princess she murdered. I feel like there was more of a backstory that could have been elaborated on in another short scene. That would have really just improved the episode a bit, because, again, she's a one-off antagonist. It doesn't matter. She's dead by the end. But, like, I feel like there's something missing. But it's really hard to bring this episode's ranking down, because no characters are wasted. Except for that poor Nurse Martha who got insulted by the Doctor, and no time is wasted either. Literally, there's this one scene where Martha follows Mr. Smith for the first time, because she sees me and she's like, hang on, I saw you outside today, when he goes back in time to show her the tie thing, and then she's like, there's something weird about you, I gotta keep an eye on you. And then, like, he literally tells this other Nurse Martha to just stay here because, like, she's, like, not equipped to be a companion. And then she just starts crying. It's absolutely savage. And I don't know why. And I think the thing is, the subtlety of the show is that the Doctor is written to be a hero, but, like, such a flawed hero. Because he's just such an alien. He has absolutely, like, he's just out of touch sometimes with kind of, human emotions and kind of, like, human social conventions, and it's just kind of very, you know, very, how should I put it, just kind of like, blissfully ignorant, I guess, of how to read the scene. It's like in I think Sound of Drums, when he says, it's like when you fancy someone, and they don't know you exist, which is ironic, because it's literally him and Martha, and he doesn't realise it's stupid. Anyway, Smith and Jones, I'm gonna give fantastic. My ranking was a 9 out of 10. On the tier list, that translates to fantastic. Only 10 out of 10s go to the GOAT. The GOAT category is reserved for the absolute peak storytelling of Doctor Who and execution. Smith and Jones is excellent. I love it. It's fantastic. It's not perfect. I think it's got too many little nitpicks for me to put it in GOAT. But moving on next, we have episode 2, The Shakespeare Code. Now, this episode's greatest strength is its tie-ins with real history. This is an episode which only certain kinds of people are going to appreciate. And as a historian, I do appreciate it, but I can see why some people would mark this one down. Here's why, okay? In this episode, you've got this brilliant exposition of Elizabethan England, this depiction of Bedlam and of kind of mental asylums back then, and, you know, the same kinds that have existed until more recently, even in the 20th century, before they were kind of outlawed. The Globe Theatre, and the various constant running gags about Shakespeare's wordplay, as well as quotes from his plays, and the meta commentary. Like, there's so many nice little bits about this, which Shakespeare enthusiasts will love. Like, there'll be a bit where, I can't remember what exactly he says, but, like, Shakespeare remarks on something that implies that he's bisexual, and it's like he likes men as well as women, and then the Doctor's like, oh, wow, 50 academics just punch the air. And again, they're probably realistic. Like, I'm not a Shakespeare expert, but, like, it really feels like this episode was well-researched. I don't know, I can't verify the historical accuracy unless I did some proper in-depth research. I did some quick research on the topics, but it seems to me that they were actually really, like, accurate. And again, there's just this nice humorous charm, this almost magical tone that feels Shakespearean. You can tell that this was written by a hardcore Shakespeare fan and or expert, and I just want to check. Shakespeare Code. Who actually wrote the Shakespeare Code? I just want to mute this. It also has a nice intro. I haven't even talked about that yet. Gareth Roberts. Shout out to Gareth Roberts. I guess. Shout out to everyone who wrote these. I'm not going to check them all. I'm sorry. I don't normally do this, but I want to know because I was like, is this Russell T? Or no, it's Gareth Roberts. Again, the episode wasn't the best, but the wit and humor was on point. And it did have its scary moments. The way the Carrionites were done with the masks and the CGI really scared me as a kid. I think like they're really like freaky, kind of like, you know, medieval kind of fable, you know, caricatures. They're really cool. And again, obviously, the three witches around the cauldron, it's a reference to Macbeth. It's a whole... There's so many references to things like Romeo and Juliet, you know, Midsummer Night's Dream in this episode. But honestly, the episode feels pretty low stakes until the end. The Carrionites plot becomes too obvious too soon for the intrigue to really hold up for long. There's quite a lot of the episode where we know perfectly well what's going on, and we're just kind of waiting for the characters to go from A to B. It feels drawn out. In terms of character development, though, it's really important, because this is the episode 2 of the series. This is the Doctor's dynamic with Martha slowly shifting. It starts off with they're just kind of on friendly terms, but they don't really know each other. But, you know, the Doctor is still kind of like, you know, he's still kind of being a bit of a sop over Rose, and he's like remarking early to Martha's face, Rose would not to do, and he calls Martha a novice, and he's really dismissive of Martha, and Martha rightfully is like pretty pissed, and the Doctor just doesn't read the situation, which again goes to show he's kind of detached. He's spent long enough away, who knows how long, between, you know, Runaway Bride and Smith and Jones, maybe a few months, long enough to just kind of be detached from human interaction and just kind of obsessed still with Rose. But he does later compliment Martha's brilliance when helping save the day. He's not intentionally putting her down, he's just kind of neglectful. And Martha herself is excellent. Again, legendary character. She notices things the Doctor doesn't. She asks the right questions. She really stands out as a companion, especially this early in her time with the Doctor. Like, the fact that she herself is a medical student training to be a doctor is a really nice foil to the Doctor as well, you know. Because again, the bit at the start where someone, you know, takes the bucket and they tip their poo out of the second story window, because that's what they did back in Elizabethan England. That's how they got rid of feces, they just chucked them in the street. It's like, you know, other companions, you can imagine how they'd be like, oh god, really, can we leave? But Martha's like, I've seen worse. Because she's a medical student, of course she's seen worse. And like, I don't know, she's just like, just so with it. And, like, she notices, for example, the Carrionite flying away from the window after they find Shakespeare when he's been hypnotized to write the, you know, the spell, in Love's Labour's 1. Is it Love's Labour's Lost or Love's Labour's 1? Love's Labour's 1 was the one that was lost, right? Because again, it's based on a real mystery. In real life, there is a Shakespeare play that we know for a fact exists, because it's been referenced to, but there are no surviving copies. I think it is Love's Labour's 1. It's like, no one knows what the play exactly was about or what it was in it, because it doesn't exist anymore. There's no surviving copies or records of it. But in the episode, it's explained, and again, it's one of those beautiful adding sci-fi to real history at a time, and it's explained that, oh, the reason the play has never survived is because of this plot with the Carrionites, and it got kind of sucked into the void and kind of, you know, lost to space-time. It's excellent. And the fact that Shakespeare himself is essential to defeating them in the end, because he's the man who come up with the right words, it's so beautifully written, and it so nicely ties into everything that Shakespeare is. And again, the set design and costume, you know, just all the background production stuff, which often gets glossed over because I'm so focused on the writing, have to give a shout out to it. They really stepped it up in Series 3 with the quality of the costumes, the quality of the sets, the quality, again, the soundtrack, everything is bussin'. So despite its flaws, even if you're not really into Shakespeare, I think the wit and the charm of the humour and the guy who plays Shakespeare, the way Shakespeare's depicted, I think that is enough to really carry this episode. It's like, otherwise it's just kind of average, it's okay. But I gave it an 8 out of 10. I'm going to give it good. Again, I know it's only 1 point. Logically, I'm going 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 here. But you got to remember, guys, the worst episodes in this season are not that bad. This is a very high quality season. They're, like, honestly, if this ranges 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, it doesn't directly translate, I'm not saying it does, but even if it does, that's fair, because there's literally nothing here I'm putting below a 6, if I'm being really honest, and I'll explain why later. But yeah, Shakespeare Code kind of, I don't know, I feel like it was missing something. I feel like it could have built up on the mystery more, or maybe just been paced better, but like it was solid. I enjoyed it. It's like really good if you're into Shakespeare as well. There's a lot of extra stuff if you're a Shakespeare fan. Now, Gridlock, episode 3. Also, Ethan, welcome to the stream. Finally, someone's actually watching. We're in chat. Thank you. I really appreciate you hanging around. There was an appearance by QEI in this episode, and she seemed pretty... Oh, yes, Queen Elizabeth I. And yes, Ethan, yes, it is. I didn't even mention this, but in this episode, Queen Elizabeth I is, like, really angry with the Doctor. She's like, off with his head! And Shakespeare finds it really funny, and he and Martha run off, and that's their exit. It's such a beautiful, bombastic exit. And again, it's another example of Doctor Who actually using time travel as part of the plot. I don't think that was originally intended to go anywhere, because it's never explained in this season or Series 4 or the specials. But way, way in the future, in the 50th anniversary, they had a backstory with a younger Queen Elizabeth I with the 10th Doctor, which kind of explains retroactively why she was mad with him, because they got married and then he ran off. So yes, it is a tie-in. The Day of the Doctor tied back in with this to kind of explain that little thing, which is, again, just one of the charming little aspects of Doctor Who, all the interconnectivity of all the little bits and pieces, you know, across years and years of TV series. 1 second, guys. I need to blow my nose. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. As we were. Oh, man. Did I mention, by the way, Ethan? I don't know if you saw. I don't know why, this thing, sometimes it's readable, sometimes it isn't in the light. And also, I forgot, I put my calendar here. Can you believe it's May already? What's that all about? Anyway, as we were. So, Gridlock. I'm just going to rattle through these. I'm on my own, so this actually might be a shorter stream, I don't know. Oh yeah, I need to charge my phone as well, I almost forgot. Hold on. I knew there was something I'd forgotten to do. I need to charge my phone. I've got the charger down here, hold on. Ugh. There we go. Let me do this before I forget again. I knew there was something else I'd forgotten. There we go. Right, phone's charging, as we were. So, Gridlock. This episode was a beautiful. That's my chosen word to describe Gridlock. It's beautiful. The motifs, the musical themes, the themes, musical or not, actually, sorry, I thought I was thinking of the music, because the Face of Bows track is really beautiful, but actually, yeah, the motifs, the themes, the way the plot was wrapped up so well, the character development, the protagonists, and the little details, everything about this was superb. On its own, it's a fun story. The macro... excuse me, again, I said I wouldn't read it all out word for word, but, like, I did take the time to phrase this, you know, as clearly as I could, you know, immediately after watching the episode. These are like my raw thoughts, but, on its own, it's a fun story, right? The Macra are a simplified villainy that old Who fans might feel were done dirty, because they are a lot less developed than they were way back in the Troughton era in the 60s when they were first introduced, but still serve as a fun reference for those who remember them from long ago. Other than that, this episode is, like, fantastic. In any case, the plot itself is decently paced and planned, all the loose ends are tied up at the end, and the characters are good, even the single-scene background characters. Thomas and Valerie are particularly memorable, but what enhances this story the most is its social commentary and dystopian framing. Police leaving callers on hold, masses of cars taking years to travel mere miles, the smog making the air unbreathable. It's a cutting social commentary with a lighter edge. The sequence of the Doctor jumping down the cars was a good gag, with a wholesome and genuinely hopeful end. The symbolism of the light, literally, the light opening and pouring in from above, really setting a good tone for the ending. But, like, the social commentary in this dystopian world is pretty dark and cutting. I really appreciate it. The best thing about this episode is that it really furthers the Doctor and Martha's dynamic with something so much more realistic and poignant than anything with Rose, if we're being really honest. Like, sure, Rose was great, but seeing Martha realise that she has suddenly entered a life-threatening situation with a stranger far, far away from home and family, and then challenging the Doctor's authority and forcing him to address who he really is, it's beautiful. Martha is so much more rational, level-headed, and independent than Rose or other companions, and overcomes the initial starstruck by the adventure in time travel state much more quickly than most. She demands to be the Doctor's equal, not his sidekick. which, as a black female protagonist, you know, one of the first in Doctor Who, is pretty important. Like, I love that the, like, with most of the companions, right, like, Martha has this too. She's totally in awe. She's starstruck by the Doctor. She's blown away by, like, all the possibility, and she's just completely immersed in the adventure for a good amount of time. Fair enough, right? But, like, with Rose, when did Rose first realise, oh my god, I'm trapped far away from home, I could die, and my family, they would never know? When was that? Because I don't think that was until, like halfway through Series 1? Maybe later? I don't even remember. She might have said it in The End of the World. But I don't remember. But, like, with Martha, it's like 2 episodes, you know, 2 episodes from starting to travel with the Doctor, and she's realised, oh my god, if I die now, my family's never going to know. I'm just trapped out here. And, like, instead of just kind of going along and following the Doctor, she, like, you know, puts her foot down and demands to be treated as an equal rather than just his sidekick, and kind of, like, have, like, a fair discussion about, you know, their boundaries stuff, because the Doctor's still a complete stranger to her, and she's like, this isn't fair, this is wrong, I'm doing something really stupid, just travelling with a stranger into really dangerous situations. And it's like, you know, it's just, I don't know, I just think it's excellent, because it really grounds Martha as such a more interesting and challenging character who really, like, stands up to the Doctor, you know. It's like, the Doctor doesn't just dominate the show, she's got a real nice balance with him in terms of, like, actual authority and control. And the way the Doctor responds to her, like, she grabs her, she says, it's like, I'm not leaving until you explain to me who you are, because I almost died today, and I am not going to continue travelling at the expense of my life with a complete stranger. And he almost considers just leaving her there, but then he has this really poignant response, because, and again, this is another credit to both Freema and, what's her last name? Freema Agyeman? I'm sorry, I can't remember how I pronounce it. And David Tennant's acting. Tennant is so good in this scene. Like, the direction and the writing and the acting in this scene was so well dramatized. We see the fury in the moods business. Just throughout the episode, at the beginning, like, they're basically selling drugs that make you feel different moods. It's just like a weird sticky you put on the neck. And it's like, he is furious. He is angry, and he feels guilty about putting Martha in such danger too throughout the episode. Once he's with, what were the names? Thomas and Valerie. We see his guilt at putting someone in danger. Because again, I think he has a lot of guilt about Rose as well, and how much danger she was put in. And he was very, like, ignorant and reckless until he lost Rose, and since then he's been, like, really reluctant to take on companions, I think. But then we see his compassion in response to finding out what happened, and his joy freeing the humans from the motorway with the big speech as the light opens, and he's like, up, everyone drive up, and it's just, it's an emotional roller coaster that feels organic and natural, and it kind of flows, it doesn't just jump around. And then in the end, he has this beautiful melancholy while just reflecting on everything. He's not some perfect god. He's not some archetypal hero that we should blindly look up to, like Rose did, and like the viewers did for the last 2 seasons. But actually, he has a lot of character flaws that are really exposed this season, which really give him a lot more depth and nuance. He admits to lying to Martha because he liked pretending that he wasn't the last of the Time Lords. And he has this whole apology, which is an acceptance of Martha's individuality and agency travelling with him. And it's nice that this whole thing reflects on his loneliness, because in addition to his loneliness from losing Rose and just being completely alone, he's also, you know, the end of the Time War and him being the last of the Time Lords was also still pretty recent. Like, it was recently enough that he's basically back to where he was before the Ninth Doctor met Rose, except it's now as David Tennant, so it's seeing something new here, but he's kind of reverted back to that kind of state. And it's a logical character flaw. And also, Last of the Time Lords is the title of the series finale. This series is so good at building up the series arc, even more than Series 1. But yeah, plot-wise, it also sets up the series, because Martha realizes then, this is the moment that Martha realizes the Doctor needs to not be alone. Like, because they were both enjoying the travelling so much, they also made the excuse, alright, you know what, I'll give you one more trip in addition to the one trip. We did the past, and let's do the future, which is why they end up in however many news, York. I love as well that the new Earth in this episode was so much more dystopian than the one we saw in with Rose it really, like, symbolically reflects on kind of the Doctor waking up to reality and the kind of groundedness of Martha, and kind of informs that actually, you know, this is the dark side, you know, and this is kind of like the realistic depiction of the future, rather than just a beautiful, you know, utopian paradise, even though, you know, obviously shit was going down in the hospital. But yeah, this also sets up the series, because this is when Martha realizes, you know, at the moment she was still thinking, okay, I'm going to go after these 2 free trips, but now she's thinking, this man needs me. He needs someone, and I will take up that responsibility. Also because he's, you know, shared personal information with her. And she's also filled in on the Time Lords, Gallifrey, and the Daleks. Few companions get this fill-in that early. It took Rose like 2 seasons to learn about all of this, or like 1 season to learn about all of this. But with Martha, the Doctor just tells her, and she learns about all of these things, just straight from him, early on, and it's excellent, because it just goes to show, like, how I don't know how much agency she has as a character. It's different for different companions, of course. I mean, they usually put a Dalek episode early in season, like series 5, you know, to get that kind of box checked. But this is also, again, without mentioning how this episode continues New Earth as well. This episode is a sequel to New Earth. It doesn't just tie into Series 3, it ties into Series 2. Novice Hayne returns, and she's undergone this whole character arc, repenting with a religious life, and she's the only survivor of the virus that wiped out the surface, with the face of Bo, who saved her. Hence, you know, everyone being trapped in the motorway anyway. And the "you are not alone" message that the face of Bo gives the Doctor, which is again really important for the series arc, and also references the thing he was going to say in New Earth, but he decided not to. The message he will bestow, you know, at the end of his life to the Doctor. Again, just the links back and forth, in forwards and backwards in time. It's just so well crafted. If I am being honest, the 2 characters who kidnapped Martha were just not interesting characters. The macro feel underwhelming, but everything from the CGI to costume design impressed me enough to edge this episode into the very top tier. This is a 10 out of 10 episode, so I'm giving it the GOAT. It is going in the GOAT category. Also, I know I'm looking at my notes a lot more than Tiermaker, which probably isn't as visually pleasing. So what I'm actually going to do is select my browser here. If I press F11? No, F12. F11? No? Can I get it to fit the full screen? Come on. Kind of. That gap doesn't look good though, so I'm gonna fix it. But what I might do is this, so that I can keep reading my notes, but you guys can enjoy the based to make. I'm gonna stretch it out slightly, just so it fits the screen. Oh wait, what am I doing? Okay, there we go. It's a little stretch, but you'll see it properly at the end, so don't worry about it. There you go. Now you can just see the tier list while I read out the episodes. But yeah, excellent episode. And next up, we got one of the absolute best Doctor Who episodes of all time. This friggin' banger. This 2-parter is But before I continue, let me just catch up with chat, because I actually do have some new messages. So Ethan says that Gridlock feels just kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, an episode of all time. I disagree. I think the characters who kidnap Martha are just kind of really lame and forgettable. And again, the overall concepts and the premise are kind of forgettable, I guess. But it does so much for character development and series arc building, and social commentary that yeah, it's S tier for me. I guess it's S tier for everything except kind of the core thing. Because if this was just a standalone story, which didn't have the connections to other parts of the series or major character development, the only thing going for it would be the social commentary. And then it would just be in the good category with Shakespeare Code. But no, Gridlock, in my opinion, is S tier. I love that episode. And yeah, we see what happened after the hospital got shut down and everything. Yeah. Freeman Aggie Man. It's Aggie Man, thank you. I don't know why, but I always default to a J sound when I see G's written next to letters like Y. I don't know why. It's Aggie Man, not Aggie Man. What am I saying? Man, I hope she never sees this. But yeah, Martha. Oh, S tier character. I do prefer Rose and Donna over, but all 3 of them are my top 3 companions. Later series companions just don't hit home like the older days. That is perfectly valid. I don't really have an opinion on this. I remember getting tired of Amy and Rory after a while, but they weren't bad. And I remember really liking Clara, but honestly, it's been so long, I don't remember a whole lot about these companions, or why I liked or disliked them in the first place. But yeah, Freema Agyeman, Martha Jones, honestly my number one right now. That may change, because I'm about to watch Series 4, you know, sooner or later, for the first time in a long time. I don't know when, you know, I'm gonna get around to that, but I will, and that might change my opinion. I might put Donna in first place, I don't know. But, like, just in terms of the character design. Anyway, Episode 4, Daleks in Manhattan. This episode is legendary because it succeeds on all fronts. It does everything you could possibly ask for in a Doctor Who episode. I truly mean that. I literally think this episode does everything you could possibly want it to, okay? It's the part one of an individual story, so there's a lot more substance, and it's, you know, a bit slower paced to really take time on characters and stuff, because it's like a full two-parter. It introduces and sets up elements nicely. We get Laszlo and Tallulah in the intro, and then not showing them up till halfway through. Again, putting those two in the intro was a really smart choice, because they aren't introduced and linked back in until a bit later in the episode, and they would have been introduced too late if they weren't both in the intro, which also ties perfectly into, you know, the top layer of the Daleks kind of scheme, the pig slaves kidnapping them, so that's good. And again, Laszlo's role in the plot is really important later on, they all are. We got the ABC plots of the Doctor, Martha, and the Daleks, because they kind of all split up and they're all doing their own thing, and the way the story elements are built up, and we see each character, is just beautiful. It's so well done. The structure is really thought out. There's a clear plan. There's hints of how elements such as the final experiment are going to pay off in Part 2 as well. You can tell that Part 2 has already been written. As part of the series arc, there is some excellent character development for the Doctor and Martha. Tallulah, being away from Martha's unrequited love for the Doctor to be transmitted to the audience, is a sublime development for her, because I can't remember what scene I'm referencing here, but it's like, Martha at this point is starting to get a bit of a crush on the Doctor because he's just such in awe of him, which is, you know, just how it is. And Tallulah, they have this conversation about men, right? Because Tallulah's from the 30s, so the whole gender role dynamic that Tallulah has, you know, lived in her whole life, and the way she expresses that with Martha is really nice kind of commentary on her relationship and actually the dynamic, because Tallulah thinks that Martha's got a crush on the Doctor. Martha doesn't think so. She's kind of in denial at this point, and it's just a nice kind of like you know, a little detail, I guess, for the you know, the character development. And then you've got the Devil in Me song, which I believe the actual title, if I can just go find it, I forget because it is on my playlist. My Angel Put the Devil in Me, freaking banger. I love this song. It goes so hard. Yeah, My Angel Put the Devil in Me is nice because, if I just get my notes, so I was looking at my Spotify again. The thing is, right, this song is a metaphor for the Daleks putting evil into the humans they experimented on, such as Laszlo, and for the Daleks awakening the evil in the Doctor and his dark side. And I know this because it happens just alongside the scene. While the song is playing, Toulou's performing, the Doctor's behind the stage fiddling with the mutant he found in the sewers and realising 66 Scaro. And it's like, oh, it's just beautiful how it connects, and Tennant really pulls off the acting, because the subtlety in his expressions, which just snap change for the rest of the episode after the moment he realizes it's from Scaro, the rage and the vengeance because, you know, of his relationship and history with the Daleks, it's so well done. It's like, in the following few scenes, like, his whole, like, tone is just a bit more muted, a bit more angry. And again, it's surmised in that line, isn't it? They always survive, even when I lose everything. And that scene where he and Tallulah in the sewers is just so well done. She's so oblivious and such a contrast, such a foil to him. And he's just enraged the Daleks have somehow survived yet again. They always come back. This made me think about something for FNAF, which I'm going to talk about later. I'm just gonna note this down. They always survive, even when I lose everything. I think that's because, again, Rose was obviously his everything, and that's another part of, you know, his character arc. And it's beautiful. It's so well written. But yeah, the Daleks are evil. The devil in me. And also, as an insight into history, the social commentary, this episode is very good. Molto bene. The setting of Hooverville, the representation of the Great Depression's hardship on everyone from Tallulah, you know, a stage girl, to Frank, you know, a Hooverville resident. It shows rather than tells the failures of capitalism in a poignant and realistic way. It shows. It's all... They don't tell you capitalism bad because 1930s America, created an environment that just screwed everyone except the very wealthy. It shows you subtly. We see men fighting over a slice of bread. We see, the fires and the worn clothes and the tents that the people of Hooverville have to live in. If you go and do some research on what Hoovervilles actually were, as I did after the episode, you appreciate it even more. Again, 1930, Great Depression, nicely tied in and consistent with real history. And again, the fact that it's so widespread and universal, we see every single character other than the Doctor and Martha kind of affected or involved in the Great Depression and the economic hardships of 1930s Manhattan in some way. Even the people who are wealthy, like Diagoras, who we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, Tallulah, Frank, Solomon, Mr. Diagoras, Laszlo, even the unnamed construction workers who appear in both episodes. Like, this is the next paragraph I wrote. Something that makes this episode immediately stand out to me is that every single character is utilized effectively, and every single character is memorable. Even those unnamed background construction workers have some amazing lines, they have some good acting, and like, they represent the world. They help build the world through the plot. Their dialogue furthers the plot and it builds the world. There are a diverse cast that represent the times effectively. Between all the characters I've listed, you've got men and women, whites and blacks, rich and poor, and it's like all these people are either, struggling, they're in some kind of like, difficult job, barely earning enough to get by, they're homeless, they're in the dumps, or they're, what does Tallulah say? Something about, like, you gotta keep dancing because the show must go on. She has this line in a conversation with Martha, and it's really well written. And even Mr. Diagoras, even though he's, like, a wealthy businessman who's kind of on top of things, he's just frustrated all the time because he's so ambitious, because he's so greedy. He's not happy. No one is happy. And it's such a great commentary that kind of shows the negative side of capitalism, and it's quite a nice political commentary. Solomon's introduction as well, breaking up the fight of the bread, is just a perfect, his entire character is summarized in one scene. He's like breaking up the fight, he's the peacemaker, he's the leader. He's excellent. He's a fair and strong leader. He's one of my favorite characters in this whole story, Solomon. And Diagoras as well, having dialogue with Khan, is a striking insight into how greedy ambition can result in evil incarnate. The Daleks literally represent evil, and the fact that a human thinks like them is kind of eerie. Like, Diagoras is just calmly having a conversation with Khan, and they literally say to him, like, you think like a Dalek. It's amazing. And then he's chosen for the next experiment with seconds. Oh my god, dude. Anyway, there's literally nothing the episode does wrong. I mean, prove me wrong, but, like, I've tried overanalyzing it, and it's just, there's so much. Again, all the little things. Costume, green screen, set design, scoring, all those little directional choices, like when the Doctor realizes the mutants from Skara, the elevator doors having a light bulb that matches the Dalek eye stalk, all the subtle little things like that. They all add up into an excellent episode. I gave this an 11 out of 10, which means it's goated with the sauce. Absolute goat episode. I'm going to stop going on about it. I don't know if there was anything I didn't mention, but... I'm repeating myself at this point. But yeah, it's incredible. Now, next up, we've got Episode 5, Evolution of the Daleks. A model two-parter where Episode 1 established... this episode developed. So, now that everything's been established and kind of introduced, this episode develops them. This episode brings us the action, the consequences, the climaxes. So, for the sake of not repeating myself, this episode did pretty much everything Part 1 did right, but additionally, instead of, like, building stuff up, this episode handled character developments and stakes in particular very well. There's a lot of cool action scenes, and the stakes are high because there are relentless deaths. There are so many character deaths in this episode. Solomon dies, like, in the first 5 minutes. We see Sek's, like, death in the finale was supremely tragic. Both of them. There's, like, a nice mirror parallel. They both get exterminated by the Daleks, highlighting what it really means to be human, because even though Diagoras proves that, humanity has the potential to be just as monstrous as the Daleks, which, again, references something the Master says in the finale, kind of ties in. Both of their deaths are sacrifices that were done out of honor, courage, hope, and bravery in the face of pure evil. Solomon offers his hands up to the Daleks, saying, you know, how terrifying it is to learn the human universe is so much bigger, but it's got to give me hope. And then they just kill him on the spot after his speech. It's horrible. And then Sek, obviously, he sacrifices himself because, you know, he wants to honor Solomon, and he wants to do the right thing, and he saves the Doctor's life by taking the bullet for him, basically. And then the lightning strike with the, you know, the resolution and revelation of the whole Dalek scheme, the way the plot loose ends were tied up, the momentum didn't cease at any moment. Seeing the Doctor work with the Daleks in the lab was so weird as well. This episode really pushed what it meant to be a Dalek and what the Daleks were, and kind of Dalek Sek is just a really interesting character. Human Dalek hybrid who starts, you know, having humanity. It's excellent. And then the ending, crucially, is a really fulfilling. The Doctor actually lives up to his name, and it's kind of like a Ninth Doctor everybody lives moment where he's like, enough people have died today. There's been like an entire genocide. The entire Time Lord human Dalek hybrid species just got, like, you know, executed by Khan. All of the Daleks except Khan end up dead. Some more of the Hooverville residents end up killed. The pig slaves all die out. Literally, like, everyone dies in this episode. There's so many people who die. Laszlo's days are limited, but the Doctor saves him. He goes out of his way to save him, because Laszlo was critical support and avoids yet another episode. Blech. I'm kind of trying to read off here. Laszlo's critical, right? Like, Laszlo's the one who gets the Doctor out of the lab, and Sek is captured, and he's, like, the one who has all the information inside a thing, who's able to sneak in because he's, like, a half-pig slave, and, like, Laszlo's an absolute king, and it's really nice that his life was saved. Frank steps up to be the leader, the role of leader, that fill Solomon's role as leader of Hooverville, which is a realistically bittersweet invitation to Hooverville as well. He gives a bittersweet. He's saying to, you know, Laszlo, like, you're gonna get funny looks. You're gonna have to hide your face, but you're welcome here. And it's yeah. Again, there's the motif of the place you go when there's nowhere left to go. It's just so well crafted. All these like motifs and themes that are like linked back together, start to end. And the characters are consistent. Also, Frank is played by Andrew Garfield, who is also Spider-Man. He does a really good job with it. But yeah, Martha as well gets her moments with the Doctor, notably the last part, addressing that there's somebody for everybody. That's the line she specifically points out, because after her time with Tallulah, she's kind of realizing, yeah, I kind of like this guy. And she's trying to kind of give him a hint, but he's just oblivious, because he's still thinking about Rose. Maybe not quite as obviously, but yeah, the Doctor's kind of oblivious. And again, there's this bit of a cliffhanger, because it was like, Dalek Khan, after everything that happened, one Dalek got away. One last Dalek in the whole universe. One day, he'll see him again. And again, this kind of sets up the series arcs for both Rose and the Daleks way later in Series 4. Which, again, transcends the episode in itself. But really, like, as well as, you know, having that component of the overarching story, it's just a good episode on its own. It's a really high-stakes episode about humanity, about good and evil, about kind of greed and science and change. And it follows up on part 1 immaculately. So yes, also going the goated tier. Like, I can't emphasize enough how good these episodes are. I might have to move everything down just to leave these guys in GOAT, because they're that good. It's just they're perfect. I'll say it right now. The Dalek 2-parter is perfect. I would not change a single thing about them. But hey, maybe that's just me. I don't know if this is an extreme opinion, because I know how popular this era is, and there are plenty of people who would say the same thing as I would about these episodes being absolutely goated. And I also wonder, I have this critical self-doubt thing, man, am I really just overrating these? Is there something I'm missing? But, like, by all accounts that I normally rate everything anyway, like the writing, the direction, the drama, the special effects, and the music, and the everything, it's just so good. But anyway, we're going to move on now to episode 6. Just going to catch up with chat, though. It is nice as well, actually, seeing the Daleks have emotion. There was so much I didn't even mention. But it's like, yeah, my planet is gone. Like, we actually see the Daleks show more emotion. Because here's the thing. In the Doctor Who lore, right, the Daleks historically were always meant to be, they can only feel hatred. They are pure hate. But we know that's not true, because we know they also feel fear. And this has been evident since before Dalek in 2005. Like, the Daleks can feel fear, because they can only feel, like, negative emotions. And then Dalek obviously broke the boundaries, and, well, with, Rose's, like, DNA, it starts to feel all kinds of things. But then, this Dalek with Khan and Diagras, part of me thinks, maybe the Dalek doesn't actually feel the kind of remorse and the sorrow that it's expressing, and it's just using this to manipulate Diagras. But I also wonder, is it genuine? Because in a weird way, the Daleks mirror the Doctor. They are a parallel. They both have this kind of detached, kind of like, self-absorbed attitude. The Doctor, says to Martha's face something about Rose, or something like she would know what to do, right, in Shakespeare Code. And then in Daleks Manhattan, Khan says, humanity is weak, you shelter from the dark. Yet there are millions of you and only 4 of us. And it's an introspective moment, and it's like, is that genuine? Because that's the exact same kind of, remorse, survivor's guilt that the Doctor feels. Maybe not survivor's guilt, but it's like, they both have this kind of thing of like, man, after everything, like, I think I'm so great, but, like, I'm so weak. Because the Doctor, he says, you know me, I'm brilliant in Voyage of the Damned. And it's like, yeah, he has a self-confidence, obviously. He's basically a god compared to humans. But also, like, he has lost so much. And he is so flawed in so many ways. And it's like this beautiful parallel. It's like, man, is the Doctor really any better than the Daleks? And obviously he is, because of the choices he makes. And we see that with Dalek sex. And everything connects. It's seamless. It's seamless. The Doctor's so done with all the genocide. As someone who has now studied genocide and is writing an essay on it for my history degree this year, I understand genocide a lot more now. Holy crap, yeah. That was a pretty bold move to include that in the episode, to haven't actually name-dropped genocide. Because genocide's no joke, man. Genocide is like the ultimate crime. It's... like, man, it's difficult to even talk about it. I probably shouldn't talk about it on a YouTube stream. I don't know. I'd love to, but I won't. But again, I love how you think it's like the final confrontation, it's like the one-on-one, last of each of their species. And it's like, they always survive, even when I lose everything. The stakes are always higher. Because then he says, the Daleks are now vulnerable, and that makes them more dangerous than ever. And it's like, oh my god, it's true. The way we see the Daleks act in this episode is like the most desperate. And it's like but it's also like 4 of the most intelligent, powerful Daleks of all time. One thing that does bother me a bit about the Russell T era is that the Cult of Skaro are kind of criminally underused. They're introduced in Series 2's finale, and they're epic. But they don't really get much character development. They're definitely unique and more capable, and Daleks second to the Black Dalek, very unique look. But they're not that different from regular Daleks. And then in this episode, we get loads of character introspection on Sek and a bit more on Khan. But Thay and Jast are still kind of just there in the background being Daleks, so they don't seem very different. And then, obviously, there's, Series 4 with Khan, which we'll get to. But, like, we never saw the Cult of Skaro again. And on the one hand, that's good. It's good, because I feel like if they'd appeared too often, or if they'd been dragged out into the Moffat era, the value of their characters would have lessened. They would have become... a bit of a joke. Their presence would be limited. They would be kind of, much, I guess, weaker. And also just less interesting and less threatening and all of that. But on the other hand, I feel like there is so much potential for more stories with them that we never really got. Maybe not in the official TV show, but maybe like audiobooks. I know they've appeared in like Big Finish stuff. I've not really listened to that, unfortunately. But like, I want to know, like, what was the origin story of these guys? Like, where did they start? How did they get to where they were in, Series 2? Like, and what if, they survived? Or what if, like, there was a parallel, some of them time traveled and ended up in a parallel universe and, like, met, like, the Paradigm Daleks from Series 5 or something? I just feel like there's so much interesting potential there. And there actually are Doctor Who fan animations, which I gotta show you guys. There is a fan animation or two on YouTube in like SFM or Blender or something. I don't know why I did that. What's it called? The Dalek That Time Forgot. This is a fan animation from years ago, but this thing is so cool. It's complete fan service. It's complete Dalek fan service bullshit. But if you're a Doctor Who fan, I highly recommend that you watch The Dalek That Time Forgot. They were originally released in multiple parts. but you can view the full thing here. And it basically takes every single Dalek story up to Series 5, and it connects them in a really interesting way with some funky time travel shenanigans. The animation's really clean. It's very nice. It's so cool. I don't want to spoil it. I'm already spoiling it with the thumbnails, but it is from years and years ago. But yeah, the Dalek That Time Forgot is a really interesting kind of fan-made what-if that fits into canon. Like, it could be canon. It fits. But anyway, back to the tier list. Yeah. Yes, Ethan, with the quotations. Yes. You might have removed all your emotions, but I reckon deep down in your DNA there's one spark left. And that's fear. That's from Doomsday, right? I don't remember. Anyway. I'm sure Big Finish audio with the Cult of Scar already exists. I just don't know where to find it. Anyway. But moving on. Back to this. The Lazarus Experiment, episode 6. So, we're at the point now where Martha's just kind of with the Doctor because she, you know, they need each other. But, like, after the Dalek episode, the Doctor's pretty thrown, and I think he wakes up to the fact, oh, wait, Martha's still with me. And now that Martha's been properly introduced, and established, and her relationship with the Doctor explored to a basic level, and the Daleks are out the way. You know, having a Dalek episode once a series is like a box that needs to be ticked, and that kind of is that's the connective tissue between Doomsday and Stolen Earth, which we'll get into. But now with all of that out of the way, the Series 3 arc really begins, okay? Like, halfway through the series. Excuse me. So, oh, that line was from Party of the Ways? Oh, man, my memory is crap. My memory is crap, forgive me. But, as a standalone episode, Lazarus Experiment's fine. It's a story of mortality and cheating death, something thematically well tied with the Doctor. I love his dialogue with Lazarus. Like, the last scene they have together with the dialogue is excellent. But it has a few shortcomings. I feel like Martha's family could have had a bit more agency in the plot, although Tish is excellent. And the monster design / CGI for Lazarus was kind of terrible. I'm not really sure why they went for a scorpion look with his face weirdly melded on, but at least it's explained by the Doctor in witty sci-fi fashion. But yeah, like, the CGI for Lazarus was really bizarre. It looks terrible. The existence of such technology in 2008 on Earth also seems inexplicable, but it is actually explained later in the series, which we'll get to. Other than that, though, the pacing was fine, the characters had some great moments, the Doctor meeting Martha's family was hilariously awkward. It's like, always the mothers, and like, Martha's mother really doesn't like him, because basically, Martha's disappeared for like a day or two, and she's now appeared with this strange man. So obviously, Mum's like, you know, suspicious, angry, it's so funny. And then we get the Doctor's use of basic science to blow up a room, which was surprisingly realistic. He like turns all the gas taps on in the lab. It was such a cool little scene. It looked good for the trailer as well, and it was like cool. It's like, oh yeah, it's actually, you could do that in real life. Probably shouldn't, but yeah. Excuse me. The cathedral segment as well at the end. That entire cathedral segment really gave the episode a lot more weight and stakes as well. Like, you think it's over, and it's been a pretty meh episode, and then you've got this last sequence that really solidifies it as like a more interesting, dynamic episode. Like, there's an entire fake-out ending. It's so cool. Now, the main takeaway from this, though, aside from the Doctor finally deciding to let Martha join him as more than a passenger, it's after this they decide, you know what, you can join me permanently, you know. And, like, she's more than a passenger now. She gets, like, the TARDIS key, I think, in this episode. It's like, you know, not passenger privilege, but it's, like, something, traveler's privilege. I don't remember, but she gets a TARDIS key. I think it might be this episode or one of the next ones. And it's like the Doctor decides to really be more trusting of her after everything they've been through together. And as well as linking the start and the end very nicely, we also get a mention of Harold Saxon, and someone working for him knows of the Doctor and has this warning that we don't hear to Martha's mum. He like whispers in her ear, and it's this intriguing plot line that is starting to gradually be built up, which happens in the next episode. Now, Lazarus Experiment, I gave an 8.5 out of 10. Wasn't the most mind-blowing episode, but definitely a solid one. It did stuff for the series arc, it did stuff for character relationships, it was as its own story, explored some really nice themes. I'm gonna give it fantastic. I'm gonna give it fantastic episode. Really solid. Loved it. What more could you want from it? Well, maybe a few changes to this goddamn CGI, but yeah. The Doctor has a thing for being slapped by mothers. Not like that, Ethan. Phrasing, my guy. My guy, listen, you gotta change your phrasing, man, because he does not have a thing for being slapped by mothers. It's just a thing that happens to him. It's not... Rephrase, my guy, rephrase. But yeah, it's always the mothers, which is quite funny. I like how there's a bit of a parallel with Jackie. She's quite different, obviously, but it's like, man, the Doctor doesn't get along with mums at all. Yeah. Anyway. Now, the next episode is 42. And guess who wrote this episode? Because rewatching this in 2023, with the context of entire newer seasons of Doctor Who, you can tell that this was a Chibnall episode. And at the time, this was pretty much the only episode in the entire series that was mediocre. But looking at it now, oh my god, it's a Chibnall episode. It's a Chibnall episode. You know what this means. So here's my honest review. 42 is honestly not bad. If I can just get it up here. 42, here it is. 42 is honestly not bad. The plot structure and pacing makes sense, and the character motivations, particularly Kath's, are consistent, and all of the actors perform nicely. Ajiman and Tennant shine, and there's some nice plot development in their relationship. The exploration of the theme of faith, which is foreshadowing, the theme of faith. Like, Martha's faith in the Doctor is the thing that defines her character this episode, and we'll talk about that more soon. You know, we also got the mention of Mr. Sachs in the phone calls. We'll talk about more of that in a minute. But truthfully, this episode is just lame, conceptually. It's just lame. This almost never happens with Doctor Who. It's a criticism you'd almost never think of, like, talking about, but, like, honest to God, this episode was just lame. The premise isn't captivating. The whole thing, this whole episode, feels like what I would call B-Tech Impossible Planet. The crew members are underdeveloped. There's a convenient Deus Ex Machina solution, despite the high stakes of both TARDIS and Sonic being useless. It just feels like it kind of solves itself. And there's some pretty cringy dialogue, which you don't really often get with Doctor Who, but some of the dialogue actually made me cringe. And it just feels like the editors had to push back Chibnall's righteous brigade of shoving political messages down our throats. Although, strangely enough, I can't figure out what, if any, political message this story may have had. Like, it's just... feels just meh. Like, the whole thing is just so meh. It's a really odd episode, which kind of lacks the Series 3 charm. It's an inevitable weak link. Even if this was in Series 2, this would have been ranked C or lower. Which is why I gotta put it down here. I don't know. It's really not great. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10, which I think is generous. The only thing which was really good about this is the phone calls. There are 3 phone calls, beginning, middle, end. Why did I just do this? There are 3 phone calls, beginning, middle, end, which nicely symbolize the beginning, middle, end of the structure of the story, and they match where Martha is in the story, and they match her relationship with the Doctor and her relationship with her mum. Because what happens is that we see a call at the beginning where Martha tries calling her mum the phone because the Doctor sonicked it to make it call anywhere in time and space. And they're just kind of checking and she's like, oh, how are you? And her mum's really concerned. And there's people who have tapped the phone listening in with her mum, and it's really weird. And then there's a point in the middle of the episode where Martha thinks she's going to die, and she's like, oh my god, this is it. And she's talking to one of the crew members, and it's like, he encourages her to, like, call your mum. Tell her you love her, because it's the only chance you're ever going to have. Even though the Martha's got a lot of faith in the Doctor, it's like a really high-stakes thing. They're, like, being sent towards a sun, and, like, it's a really high-stakes episode, honestly, with the TARDIS and the Sonic both being out of the picture. But yeah, she calls her mum, and it's, like, really tense because they're listening in, and her mum's trying to get her to stay on the phone, but Martha's just saying, I love you, and it's like, I have to go, and it's really tense and anxious. And at the end of the episode, she's immediately all cheerful and kind of, you know, recklessly happy again because it's all good. The Doctor saved the day and her faith in the Doctor is strengthened. We see her being tested and her faith in the Doctor is like, it's strained, but it's tested and it pays off because she remains faithful in him. And there's the thing with Martha, she doesn't really have a strictly romantic crush on the Doctor the same way Rose might have had, but she has a very faithful view of him. She kind of looks up to him like a saint, with a romantic tinge. I don't know, it's a very unique kind of flavour of dynamic, I guess, compared to lots of other companions before and after. But it's really interesting, and like, Martha's mum is, like, consistently, like, you know, concerned throughout, and the way we get to see her perspective. From Martha's perspective, everything she's saying and doing makes perfect sense. She's just gone through this adventure. But from her mum's perspective, Martha's just randomly changing moods completely, you know, and she's really concerned because she's heard this misinformation about the Doctor from Mr. Saxon's people, and they're listening in, and it's tapped, and it's creepy, and it's like, what's going on? Who are these people who we saw in the Lazarus experiment, and now 42? But I tell you what, if it were not for those phone call scenes, 42 would literally be pointless. It would literally be filler. Aside from that, it's filler, and it's a Chibnall episode, so it's going in the bad category. It's just not a good episode. I mean, it could be much worse, but it could be much improved. Maybe it could go in okay. I don't know. It's okay. There's just a lot of things about it that I don't really like. Burn With Me, it was just cringe. Didn't make any sense. But fear not, because the next episode is an absolute legend. Trom, welcome to the stream. You've never watched Doctor Who? Well, the stream's probably not for you then. I am spoiling one of the best TV shows in existence. I would recommend clicking off the stream, watching Doctor Who, and then coming back when you've caught up, so that you can really appreciate what I'm saying, because this is for the Doctor Who fans, and there are very few of you, which is a bit of a shame, but I'm still going to stream this, because you know what? I don't care if no one's watching this. I'm doing this for myself. And Ethan's here. If there's one person I can talk to you about this and have a discussion about, that'd be nice. I know my brother Joe said he'd tune in, and he's probably going to watch this at some point, and Tasha might. I don't know, but like... Anyway. Human Nature, Family of Blood. So, for some reason, I thought it was Family of Blood first and then Human Nature last. The episode names feel like they're the wrong way around, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, episode 8, Human Nature. This is another two-parter. Now, I remember feeling bored and scared of this episode as a child. Not because the premise is dull or the monsters being particularly eerie, but because this story is a tragedy that strikes at the core of Doctor Who's warmth. It's hard to describe, but even now, it makes me feel this cold desolation that very few Doctor Who episodes do, and for that alone, it deserves praise. This story is so emotionally and dramatically removed from most Doctor Who, it's impressive. Even some of the flashback scenes have like a low saturation filter, which really gives it this weird kind of feeling. And because it's a two-parter, it feels so long. When this is finally over, it feels so good to go back to the warm safety of the TARDIS and presence of the Doctor. But like, this episode has one of those really strange starts, like a Fazbear Fright story or a FNAF story, where it's like, what is going on? You gotta watch until the end for it to pay off. It almost doesn't feel like a Doctor Who episode at times, because it's so radically different and it's so tense. There's these high stakes, there's a complete void of safety. The comfort of the Doctor and his charm and his wit is gone. The TARDIS is just completely inert. The character who represents our perspective, Martha, is alone, trapped in another time. It's scary for the same reason as the Weeping Angels. I was talking about this in the Discord earlier, but I'll get to that. The episode doesn't feel weird and uncanny due to its bizarre... When the episode doesn't feel weird and uncanny due to its bizarre, unexplained premise, the high-stakes tension is palpable. It's also one of those stories that needs a lot of time to pay off, so it feels a little unfair to rate part 1 alone. But like, if I honestly had to review it, the plot is fine, the premise is very high-stakes, and challenges both Martha and the Doctor immensely in a new way. The structure and pacing is a bit slow. There are definitely some filler scenes they had to put in to pad out the 45-minute length. But the characters mostly get all the screen time they need, and I don't think this could have been done in one 45-minute episode. I think if this was done in one 45-minute episode, it would have been a bit rushed, and it wouldn't have had the right tone. I think this needed to be 2 parts, so I'm not sure. Now, characters. Joan / Nurse Redford, the matron, Joan Redford, and John Smith get a lot of screen time. These two, they get a lot of screen time. They have their own theme tune. The depth and realism of their characters and relationship really contrast the Doctor's usual disposition, especially given the Doctor's place in John Smith's dreams and the Journal of Impossible Things. It's this beautiful piece of symbolism that kind of plays with the meta of us watching this. You know, Doctor Who is a TV show, it's fiction, it's our own kind of dream, and we are, you know, the John Smiths and Joan Redfords of this world, or perhaps even the Martha Joneses. But it gives the sci-fi aspect of the story a really grounded place in the setting, 1913 England. And Martha also faces the ultimate challenge as a companion. She can't rely on the Doctor like she always does. No amount of faith will save her now. It's up to her. The beautiful thing about Martha is that she is really tested much more early on than some other companions. I mean, true, there could have been weeks, months of adventures, you know, between these episodes. But compared to Rose or Donna, Martha has to become so much more independent so much sooner. Like, she has to survive basically on her own without the Doctor. And again, it's even more foreshadowing, like 42 was, in a more subtle, small way, you know, to the series finale, where she has to survive a long time without the Doctor on her own, putting all of her faith into him in the long run, and actually taking action and doing more than just having faith. And it's a story of faith, and this is why Martha's like arc is just so interesting to me, because she faces the greatest challenges, I think, as a companion, like much more than a lot of others, and it builds up. It's like, it actually explains rationally how she managed an entire year on her own in the finale. It's like she spent weeks before that, you know, on her own, and then, like, you know, a day before that on her own, and it's like she's getting more and more time to practice longer and longer periods away from the Doctor, just having to survive on her own as just a mere human. But yeah, the flashbacks and the TARDIS scene halfway through with the music really cement this, and having everything come out together out of chronological order starts off very confusing, but ultimately it is quite impactful. It's a very coherent narrative once the pieces are put together, and the emotion drawn in the flashbacks is amazing. The only thing that really bothers me is the family. It's really unclear who they are, how they know about the Doctor, and why they're after him. We don't know exactly what happened before, or how they were in a chase and didn't see Martha's face. Like, just the family, the antagonists just seem a bit underdeveloped. But the acting is on point, and each and every one of the four is horrifying in their own way. The only thing to mention is Timothy. There's a lot of mystery surrounding him, but he is integral to the plot, and the scenes of the open fob watch of him seeing the Doctor's memories and the various whispers of the unknown voices, as well as the Doctor's. It's foreshadowing for part 2 and the series finale, hidden in plain sight, although it felt a bit detached around him. It's like, why are we following this random kid? But it gets resolved in the next episode. Obviously, sound effects, visual effects, everything are consistently great. The representation of schooling, patriotism, and even race in 1913 are also done justice in a realistic way. I like how this commented on tropes, and like, there's a subtle racism that permeates throughout society because it's 1913. And realistically, you know, Martha's going to be treated a certain way. It's also not so subtle. Baines, one of the boys who gets possessed by the family, son of mine, he literally, like, makes a racist comment straight towards Martha, and it just gets brushed off. There's nothing she can do about it. And it's just, it's cutting. It's good, because it's like, man, this is actually realistic. It's not just like a fairy tale version of 1913. It addresses, social issues like this were a real thing back then. I'm gonna give it fantastic. It's not goated, and I feel like it has some issues, but it's still a very good episode, so I'm gonna give it fantastic. Episode 9, The Family of Blood, follows up with this, and basically what I said is that everything that the previous episode set up paid off excellently in this episode. This was the peak of the story. Part 1, it didn't really make me feel like, I just felt kind of about it, but Part 2, Part 2 picked up. The plot, structure, pacing, and such were all marvellous, with a nice balance between the characters. The battle at the beginning feels high stakes, and the assembly of the scarecrows is very impressive. The sci-fi is explained a bit better, and the characterization of each member of the family, especially Son of Mine, who seems to be the leader, is much more interesting and rationalized than just vaguely psychopathic enemy. Like, they're given a proper motive, the members of the family are explored in more depth, especially Son of Mine, who's, you know, possessing Baines, and the actor who did that, the way and his direction and writing was excellent. All those things came together. He played the part really well. Like the way he talks and kind of mocks the humans. And it's like, I'm very good at science, sir! Look at it, and he like tears off the Scarecrow's arm, and he's showing how he's like animated the Scarecrows, and he's, you know, making fun of like the militaristic sharp movements and kind of like, you know, stiff motions and ending every sentence with, sir! It's so good because it's also a commentary on war. This is an anti-war story. It's an anti-war episode. I think I want to add, I think Timothy was introduced to the other characters such as Martha much too late. I feel like he was a really late addition to the story. Like, he doesn't meet up with any of the characters until this part. But it's very interesting that he's actually acting on instruction from the Doctor. Like, he's got a low-level psychic sense, which is just a rare trait in humans, which is why he's able to actually hear the Doctor. There's also other voices whispering from the fob watch, and there's a lot of mystery surrounding the magical device, and its symbolism's pretty interesting, which I put an asterisk on. I wrote about that later. I don't really know why there are other voices coming from the fob watch. I think it's something to do with the Time Lords. Ugh, sorry. But anyway, but like, it's pretty interesting, and I don't know, it pays off. Again, because of the Doctor's absence, we have to see Martha taking up the leadership role. And again, every new episode, there's a new, dynamic, unique, interesting, challenging role for Martha to take. Now, she is with the Doctor, but the Doctor isn't himself. He's this pathetic, useless, babbling, you know, sobbing human man. And she has to take charge of the situation. And in essence, Martha is the Doctor in this story, and now the Doctor's like the, you know, helpless companion. Martha is now the Doctor, and it's really subtly and effectively done. We see her take the lead, she gets everyone out, she's pointing the gun at the enemy, she's the one who stands there last, and she saves everybody, and then we get, like, Timothy opening the watch to distract the family. I love that weird sniff thing, because I can smell the Time Lord. And then, of course, we have Joan and John, who have a beautiful arc. They have the ultimate tragedy. So, the Doctor didn't account for falling in love as a human, which Martha thought was really stupid, and of course it is, because again, it goes to show how the Doctor's kind of like, he lost his love, Rose, and since then has just kind of been really detached emotionally from anything like that. But John Smith fell in love with Joan, and vice versa. And they've been a bit, they've antagonized Martha a bit because she's gotten away, and she's like, well, if you don't mind me saying, you seem a bit familiar, because they don't know. And to Martha, it's just really bitter, because it's like, man, he really went and fell in love with someone else and not me. Because at this point, she's like, you know, really accepted her true feelings about him. But Martha's a very rational individual. She doesn't ever act out of spite. She's just kind of, you know, frustrated internally, which makes her such a good person, because even though she feels all these negative things, she never acts out on them, she never lashes out, she never puts others down or does anything violent, really, you know, to the Doctor or anyone like that. Like, she's a very understanding and empathetic individual, which makes her just one of the strongest characters ever put in the show. I can't go on it. I'm a Martha simp. Guys, I think I'm actually a Martha simp. It's the only explanation. And you understand, guys, the personality. She's so well written, though, honestly. Anyway, Stone Cold is an excellent metaphor as well. When they go into the house, it's empty, like John Smith, kind of empty of the Doctor. He's a bit of a shell. It's very emotional and very dramatic, the finale. And John Smith has to make the ultimate noble sacrifice. He's very interesting, honestly, conceptually. Like, is John Smith the Doctor? Is he a version of him stripped of his Time Lord biology? Or is he a whole different personality? Is he his own person, a completely different living being? Like, is John Smith the Doctor, or is he someone else? Is he an entirely different person? Because you could probably argue for both. And what's even more interesting is how the Doctor starts to bleed into him as Timothy opens the watch more and more. And when the Scarecrows attack, he doesn't fire a single shot. There's another thing. In the battle scene, John Smith hesitates. He's there, he's ready to go shoot up the Scarecrows, as he's trained the boys to do, and as part of the, you know, system teaching the boys to be soldiers, because that's just how it was in 1913. But he doesn't fire, he hesitates. Something deep down inside him just stops him. And it's like the Doctor, deep down, is somewhere in him. Because again, the watch has been opened gradually a few times by now, so presumably the Doctor's, you know, gradually embedding himself back in John Smith. Every time the watch is opened, a bit of the Doctor leaks into him. And it's like, because the bit of the Doctor's there, the coward not killer pacifism, that references parting of the ways. You know, again, when Timothy looks into it, there's literally references to series 1 and 2 and loads of stuff. Yeah, he kind of, we see him hesitate, and it's just so subtle, and the acting is so brilliant and subtle, because you can almost see the Doctor rather than John Smith in that scene where Tennant's like looking at it. It's fascinating, and he's like almost shaking, he's looking around, there's wondering if anyone's noticed, and it's just like, he's pointing the gun the whole time, and then he just lowers it, and it's beautiful. And ultimately, he does the self-sacrifice that the Doctor would only choose when there's no other choice. The trick of jumping time and not showing John Smith choose to die to bring the Doctor back so the Doctor can save the day was a really clever directional choice that really immerses the viewers in this scene. I thought it was one of the most immersive, clever choices, because we, the viewer, just like the family, we think it's John Smith actually in there when it turns out it was the Doctor acting. He was pretending the whole time. And I think it's just such a brilliantly executed thing. And then once the Doctor's back, we got a little bit of that, you know, reckless charm, and it's like, yeah. But there's also, it's such a dark story, because the ending ties up the loose ends really well. And we got the narration again from Baines, from Son of Mine. And it's brilliant, because it's like, they realise, and it shows us, as well as tells us something about the Doctor, he shows us that the whole story, the whole decision of the Doctor to go into hiding and pull off this whole shenanigans and pretend to be human rather than doing this immediately is to show how incredibly kind and merciful he is and how hard he tries to be a hero. Because if he doesn't make that effort, he is capable of inflicting the most incredible pain and suffering to anyone who threatens him or those he loves. And it's like they realise the reason why he was hiding from us, the reason why he didn't hunt us down, is because it was kindness. Because after everything that's happened, after the family push him to his limits, hunt him down, and leave him with no other choice, when the four of them have their ship destroyed and are just there on Earth with no one, with the Doctor standing in front of them, then they all get what they want. They get immortality, but in the form of suffering for all eternity. Thrown into a star, wrapped in unbreakable chains, put into every single mirror, and, you know, frozen in time as a scarecrow. Like, not only is the last one really thematically clever, I thought it was kind of brilliant, but it's like, the way it's presented is really interesting. The whole direction is so artistic, and it goes to show the dark side of the Doctor, and it's like, the Doctor is a hero, no doubt about it. He does the right thing, and he tries really hard to be merciful. But there comes a point where he's lacking choices, and he just does the most diabolical stuff. And now, I'm not saying it's evil at all. The family deserve what they got, absolutely. And in a way, the Doctor still gave them what they wanted. It was the nicest thing he could do, but, you know, it kind of goes to show, like, what the Doctor is capable of when, you know, you push him to his limits, and it's excellent. Now, Joan's last scene might be one of the most well-directed scenes in Doctor Who. It's actually just incredible, because the way it's written, the way it's directed is really clever. To her, the Doctor's this imposter who looks like her recently deceased husband, but can't. Because she was in love with John, they were going to get married, right? And they even had a vision, the Doctor gave him a vision of a life together. And she was already a widow. So, effectively, the Doctor walking in to see her is like her having a second husband who died, and then someone who looks just like him, but isn't him, walk in. Like, it really freaks her out, and it rubs the wrong way. She hates it, right? She hates him. And the Doctor tells her flatly that he could change back, but he won't, because he has his own life to live. He has another life to live. But he really still tries to be kind. Again, he gave the pair a vision of their entire potential life together, so, you know, Joan and John could actually experience, in a way, their whole life. And he invites Joan to travel with him. He's insisting, he's like, travel with me. Come with me. You could see the stars together. Because he says, every bit that was John Smith is still here in me. And you do wonder, like, is John Smith the Doctor? Or is the Doctor John Smith? Or are they not the same people at all? What do they have in common? What do they don't? Because ultimately, they both are heroic. They both do the right thing. But the thing is, I think John is so much more vulnerable. John is so much more openly vulnerable than the Doctor. The Doctor hides his vulnerability. And he's, like, emotionally absent compared to John. John was very much there, but the Doctor was emotionally absent. And Joan, she won't make eye contact. She refuses after all this. Again, also, her original husband before she got widowed, was shot. And again, it cements the themes of the widow and the war amazingly in the historical context that was brought up in part 1. There's a great scene where she's angry at John for, training the boys to shoot, because that's how her previous husband died. It's a nice little grounding for a character. But Jo makes the ultimate power play. The way she responds to the Doctor is so clever. She doesn't make eye contact until she finally looks him in the eyes, and she makes eye contact only when she confronts him about his responsibility for all the people who died because he chose this place on a whim. And after that, there is not a single word spoken. There is not a single word. The Doctor's, his whole tone, his facial expression falls. She's caught him out in his wrongdoing. There is no counter-argument. So many people died because he chose this place on a whim. And the Doctor does not always hold the moral high ground, and he knows it. So he just says no more words, and he just turns away, and he looks away. And Joan watches him walk out, and then she cries over the Journal of Impossible Things that's left behind. It is the most tragic thing. And there's such a cathartic release of there being rain in the next scene, which I felt was essential. Because rain is like a release of tension, it's a release of atmospheric tension in the clouds, and it really feels necessary here. Again, Martha's asking him, is she alright? Should I go check on her? And he just responds, time to move on, which is wise, because he knows that there's nothing else he can do. He has ruined this woman's life, and there is absolutely nothing he can do to sort it out. And it's just the perfect bittersweet end. And then they say goodbye to Timothy as well, and it's great. The production was amazing in this episode, but lastly, the symbolism and themes are molto bene. I actually wrote that here, molto bene, even though it's not introduced to the series 4. As I said, essays could be written on it. I know I've gone on and on, but there's a lot to say about this episode, so forgive me. Again, the way it connects with real history is great. The speech, the memorial in the end with old Timothy, still watching the fob watch that saved him from the bomb, all the foreshadowing of World War I, the entire gun scene. It's a story about love and war. For the Doctor, for Martha, for us viewers. And the way it just resonates about the dangers of time travel, heroism, and conflict. I don't know, it's great, it's beautiful, and yet there isn't a clear singular message the story is trying to tell. There is no agenda, it's just trying to show us human nature. And I think all of that warrants an S tier. I think Family of Blood is absolutely goated. Human Nature was kind of air, but Family of Blood seals the deal. Goated episode. It has so much going for it. And the very final shot of the episode is a close-up of the fob watch in Timothy's hand, which is interesting. Now, we're over halfway through, but I need to go AFK and take a break real quick. I need to go pee. So I'm going to catch up with chat after I get back. I'm going to be gone for just a couple minutes, guys. 2-3 minutes. So if you are enjoying the stream, leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, share this with your friends. All the support is very much appreciated. If you know someone who enjoys Doctor Who and would love to discuss, Doctor Who, episode rankings and tier lists, please let them know about this. Show it to them. Share it in your Doctor Who forums, whatever. But also check out the links in the description below. The best answer to the question of the day, which of the Doctor's companions is your favourite and why? Don't know why it says if. I just realised that there's been a typo there the whole time, which I completely missed. Is your favourite and why? Whoever gives me the best answer to that will have a shout out to their YouTube channel linked in the description below. Just like today's charity shout out, which goes to Macmillan, which is a cancer support charity that might be worth donating to. Might be worth supporting. It's really positive cause. These guys do all kinds of events. They have a whole community for supporting people with cancer in all kinds of ways. If you're someone you know is suffering from this incurable as of now disease, it might be worth looking into. Maybe you could do some volunteering or something. It's a great thing. So check it out. Links in the description, as with every other charity. And yeah, I will be right back in just a couple minutes. See you in a moment. Hey guys, sorry it took so long, it was a bit longer than I meant to be, but it's all good now. I have some new hydration, I got some grenadine, it's basically squash, and I got liquid out of my body. It's out and in, it's all circulating right now, it's good. Anyway, where were we? Back to the tier list. No, back to chat. I was going to read some chat first. Although I will keep this on screen. But yeah, what are you guys saying? But yeah. Well, your choice, Trom. Your choice. I appreciate your time here, but if you haven't even seen this show, this might not mean much to you. I don't know. But thank you for sticking around anyway. I appreciate viewers for whatever. I don't like, honestly, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. Honestly though, Ethan, yeah, I think drowning the Rachnos children was darker than banishing the villains for all eternity. I don't know. Yes, olfactory misdirection. It's not olfactory, it's olfactory, as in ventriloquism with the nose. It's an elementary trick in certain parts of the galaxy. I had to look this up. It's not olfactory, it's like olfactory or something. I can't remember how to spell it. But it means... yeah, olfactory. As in the olfactory system, sense of smell. Obscure word, I know. It's not what I thought it was, but that's what he says, olfactory. As in, it's a misdirection to do with the sense of smell. He tricks their noses, basically. It's no explain how, but he's a Time Lord. He can... I'm sure he has his ways. But yeah. But man, bro knows the entire quotes. Huh. Shouldn't let me press all the buttons, but in fairness, I'll give you one word of advice. Run. Also, yes. God love some subwoofer but lullaby. Absolute banger. Hope you guys enjoy the music. As we were. Blink. Now, I'm going to be honest. Blink gives me the same kind of vibe that Human Nature does to a lesser extent. It's a different vibe, but oh boy, brace yourselves, guys. We're going to be here a while. All right, this is what I wrote word for word when I first watched Blink. I wrote, "I love Blink. I'd forgotten how much I love this episode, but it's S tier." The thing about Blink is that it actually does something surprisingly rare for a show with time travel as its main premise. It actually uses time travel as a plot point, and in this case, numerous times. It's not just like a little gimmicky thing, it actually is like a big part of the plot. The way it's introduced conceptually and in the context of the plot, how Kathy is sent back to 1920 as her grandson hands Sai the letter, like the day she disappears. The way in which Billy Shipton returns old and dying as quickly as he is introduced, it's sublime. And it seamlessly works in realistic characters. It feels like a story written by Anthony Horowitz or Rick Riordan, cleverly blending science fiction into normal life, with attention to detail and colourful personality to every character, even if they have just a few minutes of screen time. I love Kathy's chemistry with Sally, and Billy's energy and his, like, contagious positivity, word. Awesome. Kudos to all of the actors and writers and whatever of this episode. It goes deeper than that, though. This episode's tone is perfectly bittersweet, dark and sad with a tinge of hope, and sprinkled with comedy. It's also quite British. Another thing that few Doctor episodes do, and do well, is a story where the Doctor is sidelined and the TARDIS and all the usual centres of comfort and safety are removed for a plot from a different perspective. Writing an appealing protagonist and tying the story into the series enough to make it recognisable as Doctor Who is another challenge this episode takes on and succeeds at, unlike Love and Monsters, although that had other bigger problems. Sally Sparrow is the highlight of this episode, and not only is she highly intelligent, charismatic and witty, not only is she more resilient and capable than many other humans throughout the series, she does indeed have character flaws. Sally is not some Mary Sue, she is only human, and ignoring the Doctor when he begins replying to her in the video, and forgetting the Yale key might fit the blue box for a minute are just two of a handful of small mistakes she makes. This grounds her character while maintaining superb personality traits that make her a strong, likeable protagonist. Shout out to Carrie Mulligan, I believe that's pronounced, Carrie Mulligan, for carrying this episode performance-wise, although honestly everybody did an excellent job. Like, the thing about this episode is that, like, literally, the Doctor and Martha get, like, 5 minutes of screen time or less. it's Sally Sparrow's story. So Sally Sparrow being well acted, well written is critical, and like she pulled it off. Forget Martha. I'm a Sally Sparrow simp. Alright. She had one episode, and she is more iconic. More iconic than some series-long protagonists. I'm gonna think about that. But anyway, there's just nothing this episode did wrong. I'm just reading my notes verbatim, by the way, because there's just a couple paragraphs. It'll actually be more concise if I just read this word for word, but also there's so much to say about Blink, okay? There's nothing about this episode did wrong, so much I could talk about. Writing aside, the unique direction, acting, cinematography, references, social commentary, and scoring/music especially, lots of new tracks in this episode, were excellent. The visual and audio motifs especially were so consistent and tuned to the emotion and tone of each scene really well. The whole premise and opening scene captures the eerie vibe of the story perfectly, with like, what's it called, Western Drumlins, like a Scooby-Doo vibe. And, you know, the whole, the whole explanation of time travel aspects in the Doctor is great. And even Martha has her moments in like the 2 or 3 scenes they have. But it goes even deeper when you think about the implicit paradoxes and the perspective of the Doctor not really shown in this episode. Truthfully, there is only one thing I actually disliked about Blink, and that was the very last shot. Rather than fading out on Sparrow and Nightingale, it pans off into a montage of loads of other random statues, and it feels a bit silly and on the nose compared to the rest of the episode, and sadly foreshadows the inconsistent meddling Moffat does later in the series with the Weeping Angels. But, other than that, I genuinely think Blink was perfect. Perfect, and perfectly tackled challenges that most episodes don't. Alright? Like, not only was the story amazing, not only were the concepts amazing, not only were the villains great, not only was the protagonist great, not only were the character relationships great, not only was the, you know, sound effects, VFX, music, direction, all of the little subtle production things great. Costume, set design. It actually utilized time travel as an element, and it sidelined the Doctor and had the story largely take place from the perspective of just an ordinary human, someone else in the universe who we've never seen before, and who was exclusive to this episode. This story took on not one, but 2 major challenges that very few other episodes did, and it still comes out on top as one of the best standalone Doctor Who stories ever. I can't emphasize enough how impressive Blink is. Honestly, Blink probably deserves, for taking on those challenges, to be in its own tier above GOAT, but I'm going to be fair, and it's going to go in the GOAT category. Like, it felt really nice to finally see where the Doctor and Martha are halfway through the episode, but because Sally and her journey are written so well, and because she has character flaws while also being really impressive as like a character and kind of, you know, having a lot of you know, agency and kind of motive and depth in the plot, as well as like you know, mistakes and kind of like, you know, fumbles. Like, it's perfectly balanced and combined, and it's like, she's not a Mary Sue, but she's interesting and kind of really capable. And other than that cringy outro, this episode was excellent. The Weeping Angels are such a brilliant concept. The whole idea of the, you know, 17 DVDs Easter egg, the way that's linked in with Billy Shipton and the you know, just go to the police, you stupid woman. And, like, again, the tragedy of Kathy and the way Sally is introduced to time travel with the Weeping Angels, and the ending. Like, I wouldn't change a goddamn thing. It's so well paced and everything. I didn't even get into the concept of the Weeping Angels in the notes I made here. The characters all had a good role to play, and everything made sense as far as it can with the story of paradoxes. Again, paradox is essential to the story, but it does make sense. And the characters, again, this is like with the Dalek two-parter. None of the characters are wasted. Every single one pretty much had a role to play, and they all did it well. I love Billy Shipton. And the Weeping Angels, one of the most brilliant Stephen Moffat inventions. But there's something else I'm really sad about. My only major disappointment is that Sally Sparrow never returned. We never got to see her again. Because she would have made an excellent companion. Just one series. If she had been in one series, or just one other episode, if she had returned. Because I feel like her character had so much more potential. Again, what if Sally Sparrow was introduced in Series 5 instead of Amy and Rory? What if it was Sally Sparrow and, I forget the dude's name. What if it was Sparrow and Nightingale, though, imagine how the Weeping Angel episode would play at the beginning of Series 5, you know, into that kind of, like, her, like, history and stuff. Now, the thing is, in the real world, I can't remember, but she declined coming back because she was busy with other roles, and then she ended up on something which really boosted her career, so she made the right choice by not returning to Doctor Who. And again, you know, sometimes it's better to leave when the going is good and just leave something as it is if it's really good and not ruin it by trying to drag it out and milk it and do more stuff with it. The Weeping Angel is the perfect example of this. Pretty much every single time we've ever seen the Weeping Angel since Blink, they've just gotten worse and worse to the point where they've just been run into the ground. They're just garbage now. They're so uninteresting. The Weeping Angels used to be amazing in Blink, and Blink is the only story where they're genuinely scary, if I'm being honest. They were alright in, like, Time of Angels, but they just got worse and worse because of Moffat's meddling. Same could have happened with Sally Sparrow. You know, if she'd been brought back, they might have just, like, not done her character justice. Apparently, in the Series 4 finale, there was going to be a shot of Sparrow and Nightingale being crushed by a Dalek spaceship, but it got cut. Which is sad, but it happens. But, you know, I like to think that Sally Sparrow met the Doctor again at some point, and maybe they had some adventures together. Maybe with, like, the 10th Doctor after Series 4, or between Series 3 and 4. I don't know. I like to think that she met up with him again. Or maybe with the 11th Doctor. Imagine her dynamic with the 11th. Also, like, even the little things you wouldn't even think of. Sally Sparrow's got drip, bro. I love her outfit. It's the kind of thing I would wear. Legitimately. Which is funny to say, because I'm not a woman. But, I mean, roughly. Like, I have actually worn similar clothing when I was a bit younger. She had drip, which is more than some companions. Anyway, I'm going to stop going on, but, like, Blink, literally, I gave an 11 out of 10. I think it was almost completely perfect, and it blew me away, because aside from the Dalek two-parter, this is the only story which doesn't connect to anything in the series arcs, really. It's filler. It was made just to be a filler, because they needed to fill up an episode slot, and they had nothing ready. But then Moffat just created one of the best episodes. And again, it goes to show what you can do on a relatively low budget. Doctor Who was a low-budget show for the longest time. I mean, I wouldn't call it a low-budget show, but it wasn't a high-budget show. And, like, they made just the most amazing stuff with the resources they had. But, yeah. But, man, I want to see a what-if now. What if, like, the 11th Doctor ran into Sally Sparrow instead of Amy and Rory in Series 5? And then Amy and Rory were, like, introduced in Series 6 or something, because they have half of Series 7 anyway, so... I don't know. I'm just saying, I would have loved to have seen more of her. I haven't seen, Carey Mulligan in anything else, but I should probably check out what else she's done. But, yeah, honestly, like, after watching Blink... I'm gonna be real with you guys for a second. Okay, listen. This is weirdly personal, but after I watched Blink, and I realized that, like, there was never any continuation of Sally Sparrow, and the Weeping Angels were ruined after that, and just the kind of the charm of that episode and that kind of part of the Who world, I felt sad. I was genuinely kind of miserable for like a day or two after that, thinking about, man, we never got more of Sparrow and Nightingale. The Weeping Angels weren't scary again. That episode is immensely nostalgic for me as well, and it's hard to explain why, and I think it's because of, like, the eerie way it uses time, with, like, the characters being aged up to death, like, because of Weeping Angel's mechanic. But also, unlike the Human Nature Family of Blood, it doesn't... It felt a lot more hopeful, and kind of, like, optimistic. It felt a lot less bleak, even though it was a very creepy episode. And, like, it was the perfect blend of bittersweet, horror... kind of charm. I don't know, it's just so hard to describe. It's such a hard episode for me to describe, but, like, the fact that it's such a great standalone as well means that if you want to introduce someone to Doctor Who, and they don't have the patience to sit through a whole series, just give them this one episode. Just show them Blink, because also it's from the perspective of a non-Doctor character, so you should give them Blink, and then ask, you want to watch Rose? Because, I mean, it's a great introduction to the show, I think. Really just blew my mind. I wonder if there's anyone out there who actually hates Blink. There are going to be people out there who hate all of these episodes. I'd be really curious to know why. Because, like, I've really tried being critical, but they're just so good. Anyway, Moving on to the season finale now, the 3-part finale. Very exciting. Would Blink be a Dr. Light episode? Yes, I believe that is the correct term. Dr. Light, absolutely. Like, the Doctor and Martha have maybe 5 minutes of screen time. Then again, the Doctor has quite a bit more because of, like, the video, which is hinted at from the start, which is a nice way to keep people watching, you know, because fans would easily lose interest without the essential components of the show. So the Doctor actually has quite a bit of screen time, but his only actual screen time, aside from the video recording in person with Martha, is, like, less than 5 minutes. So, yeah, Dr. Light episode, definitely. I think the 11th Doctor would recognise Sally, yeah. Apparently the 10th Doctor had the shortest lifespan. Yeah, honestly, the Doctor Who lore is so inconsistent because different writers like to throw around different numbers. Like, Moffat just randomly threw in like a few centuries with the 11th Doctor, which is kind of BS. So, because like, he spent 200 years on a farewell tour only to immediately not have that farewell be meaningless because he didn't actually die. It was such a weird thing that, like, just was so redundant and pointless. And I think it was literally just for the sake of having his age match his incarnation. Now he's 1100. Oh, it's like, it's so fucking dumb. And honestly, the Doctor's age has been really inconsistent in New Who especially. Because the Doctor was over 1,000 years old once he got to his, like, 7th and 8th incarnation. He was over 900. He was, like, 950 something in, like, a 7th Doctor episode. And then he dropped back to 900. I think that was the Doctor's way of dealing with trauma from the Time War. Like, he basically erased that part of his life. He, like, repressed the memories. And he just said, oh, I'm 900. Because that's how old he remembered being before the Time War, give or take. And it's his 9th incarnation, or so he thinks. So he counts it that way. But, like, the way I see it, like, the Doctor's age was well over 1,000 by the time we get to Rose. And ever since then, it's been really inconsistent. And he's just kind of been judging and guesstimating what it is. And now, like, since 12, he's, like, over 2,000. It's like, what? Like, I don't know, man. It just doesn't really make sense. I never liked that. But, yeah. I don't know. Because Russell T had a thing going. He actually counted the Doctor's age up 1 year for every, you know, yearly series. But, like, then Moffat just messed around with it in ridiculous ways. And now people are like, isn't he technically, like, 2 billion now because of the Heaven Sent? And it's like, what the fuck, man? But, yeah. I don't hate Blink. I just think it's overrated. I guess. I mean, look at me. Like, I have literally 2 criticisms of it, and one of them doesn't really count. Like, I guess it might be overrated, but I don't think so. It is phenomenal. I think it deserves to be overrated, if anything, if that makes sense. I don't know. It just impresses me so much. Like, it's the one I would happily rewatch. You know what, though? I don't really know what isn't overrated or underrated, because when I got to, you know, the age of starting high school around 2015, I really stopped watching Doctor Who. I started drifting out of it. I mean, I was much less active in, like, you know, viewing Doctor Who, and the thing is, that's also the time I started, you know, spending more time online and making my life online, but it was the same time I kind of drifted away from Doctor Who, because Doctor Who was like, you know, a kid's show to me, and it was like, at the time, it was like, man, there's only a few people at school who vaguely know about it, and it was just not something that came up in conversation anymore, you know. My family was losing interest in it, and, Series 10 finished in 2018, and then after that, the quality of Doctor Who really dropped, and we just basically stopped watching it. I did still watch everything, but it got to the point where, for Flux, I was just watching on my own here, in my room, Series 13, and as a result, I've never really participated in Doctor Who fandom stuff, or been in forums, so I have no idea what the Doctor Who fandom is really like, what's popular or unpopular. I've watched a few Doctor Who YouTubers over the years, but I've really stayed out of Doctor Who discussions. Because I didn't really know many people who also watched Doctor Who, and also Doctor Who had really fallen off over the years. But that's all changing now with the 60th. If Tennant Russell T and Catherine Tate are coming back and all this stuff is happening, I mean, there's a lot to be excited about. That's why I'm doing all this. But yeah, Midnight is a companion light episode as well. God, yeah, having Donna be out of Midnight was an interesting choice. It was very unique. Series 10 finished in 2017. Oh, was it 2017? Damn, it was earlier than I thought. Yeah, so Series 11 was mid-2018. Yeah, by that point, I had just... Doctor Who was off my radar. It was long off my radar. Again, if I'd still been actively on Doctor Who, I would have discovered that Doctor Who fan game, Five Nights at Torchwood, way earlier when it came out in 2016, but I didn't. Doctor Who in 2016 was kind of meh. We were into the Capaldi era by then, which was good, but had some issues. Anyway, I'm going to try and go through this a bit more quickly now. How long have we been streaming, though? This has definitely been a shorter stream since it's only me. I haven't had to wait on others to say their bit in voice chat. I've not had to actually have a conversation. So this is just me rambling. It's going to be a bit shorter, which is a bit of a shame. But I'll definitely be bringing people on next time, hopefully. Again, I think this just furthers the point that Series 3 is criminally underrated. I think this is the best series of Doctor Who, period, out of the ones I've watched so far. I need to rewatch Series 4 and see if it actually tops this, because I'm not sure it does. I'll be impressed if it does. Because, again, I only remember bits and pieces. But we'll see. Anyway, Utopia. So, the episode that begins the three-part finale is excellent. It's got a unique premise, it's interesting, high stakes, pacing's pretty good. It spends a lot of time on character relationships after establishing the premise, but it doesn't stagnate. Now, if I'm being honest, the reintroduction of Captain Jack Harkness is honestly odd. It's fascinating to see the duality of his depth of his relationship with the Doctor and his iconic charm. Captain, my name's Jack Harkness, who the hell are you, you know. But the Doctor is almost uncharacteristically self-absorbed and rude to Jack. It's great for highlighting his character flaws, and later exploring Martha's thoughts on the topic of Rose and Jack's immortality, but, you know, the Doctor dodges pretty much any criticism, and literally attempts leaving Jack behind on purpose. He's fully aware. Although he does say sorry, but like he tries him behind, and it's a great excuse to end up with the year 100 trillion, like the TARDIS trying to shake him off. But it's like the Doctor is so awful to Jack, and like Jack and Martha rightfully pointing out, it's like, oh, she was blonde, because like there's all this talk about Rose that Martha listens in on between the Doctor and Jack, because, you know, Jack was there, you know, and wasn't there in the Series 2 finale, but he was there in Series 1. It's like tying things up. Having Jack back was excellent. But it's like, man, the Doctor's character was almost kind of just, in moments. It was a bit off, and I don't think that was right. I don't think that's how it should be. I feel like his relationship with Jack, I can understand being critical of, like, you know, bouncing with the, you know, watch, but, like, literally leaving him behind was just such a mean thing to do. And it's like, he's such a hypocrite as well. He's like, you know, he doesn't allow Jack to fire his gun because he's his responsibility, but he's having the other human survivors shoot the future kind. It's so dumb. But anyway, conceptually, the end of the universe is presented in an interesting way. It's just a dark void on a rock with human survivors barely holding it together. The technology is low. The future kind, I think, were pretty underdeveloped. And the one future kind getting inside and damaging the rocket controls was a very convenient plot device that was not only immediately made irrelevant, but also inexplicable. Because the future kind's immediately killed off. It's just shot by the guards. It's like, okay, well, what was the point of that? Oh, I'm busy cause and effect. Man, they just immediately killed them off. But then also, it's inexplicable. They literally check the teeth at the gate. So how did the future kind get in the first place? We never even seen it. They're just suddenly there from the start of the episode. It's just so badly done. And it's like, the future kind have an interesting kind of message. Because there's a throwaway line about them being, you know, there's a fear of they being what we might become from Professor Yana. But it's like, they're just kind of there. And I don't know, I feel like they're just, you know, a bit of a plot device, really. Damaging the rocket controls as well is a convenient plot device. Oh yeah, no, and they fix it, which is why it's made irrelevant, because they use the alternate system. Anyway, the plot made sense, at least. The performances from Derek Jacobi and Chipo Chung, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's the girl who plays Chantho. Chantho and Professor Yana, amazing characters. I love the actors. I love the way they were directed and written. They were utilised and characterised beautifully. They're a real nice force to each other. The most exciting takeaway from this episode, of course, was the reveal of the Master and how it tied into both Human Nature's fob watch and Martha's reaction to seeing that, and the musical motifs are just excellent. And the face of blows, you are not alone from Gridlock. And it's like revealed to Yana, Y-A-N-A, you are not alone. It's like a connected thing. You know, Face of Bo was warning the Doctor about Professor Yana because he's actually the Master. And again, this episode ties a lot of the series together and sets up a high-stakes cliffhanger to boot. And this is beginning to get into why I think Series 3 is the best series. thought and the crafting of constructing every little thing to matter and be important in the long run and actually factor into the finale and the story and the characters, it's phenomenal, dude. Because, like, I'm gonna make a checklist, okay? I'm gonna make a checklist. I'm telling you, every single episode... You know, I'll talk about this more after Sound of Drums. But every single episode counts, alright? Oh, and also Utopia I gave a 9 out of 10, so I'm putting it in fantastic. Or should I put it in goat? Nah, fantastic. It had some issues with the future kind and the Doctor and Jack's relationship for me. But everything else is awesome. Now, the Sound of Drums. I've written here, in block caps, my first initial thought. Banger episode, goddamn. With, like, I'll show you. I literally spelled it. Goddamn. That is what I first said about the Sound of Drums immediately after watching it. Banger episode. Goddamn. Anyway, so... It's hard not to give this full marks, just because of how well it's written. Not only do we see loads and loads of earlier moments in the series pay off, but the plot progresses, sets up the finale, raises the stakes, and there's a general logic that just comes together to make a compelling story. We see the reveal that Harry Saxon was the Master this whole time, and it's justified in the plot and it's explained because the Doctor can sense him due to the Archangel network hypnotically suggesting the entire human race become passive to his bizarre shenanigans, and it cancels out the Doctor's psychic sense because it overlays the Master's own presence with the psychic kind of pattern, and it just brilliantly fills in plot holes that would normally create by retroactively adding in the Master to the last 18 months, the last 2 entire series. But it really nicely, fixes that plot issue. It's really well written. We see all of Martha's family members, all of their moments, the mysterious moments from 42, are now paying off. There are personal stakes. We see Martha being pushed to her limits and emotionally. Tish is captured. We see her parents, put in a vehicle and taken to the valley in the end. They're all captured. And it's like a very dystopian police state kind of one because they got SWAT teams and they're all firing at them and stuff. It's crazy. We see the Lazarus technology reused for the laser screwdriver because the Master was behind Lazarus the whole time, which explains how that technology was even possible in 2007 and all of, the things there. And then the Doctor is aged to be old and frail, as the Master was as Professor Yana. It's vengeful and maniacal and brilliant because it kind of flips, the Master takes his previous weakness and puts it onto the Doctor out of spite. It's like the Master was, if the Doctor can be young and strong, then so can I. And then he makes the Doctor old and frail. Again, vengeful, maniacal. John Simm's portrayal of the Master is obviously the highlight of this story. It is masterfully modernized in tandem with Russell T Davies' scripts. He's completely insane and drunk with power, always one step ahead of the Doctor, and cunning and patient and powerful. He is the Doctor's equal, a Time Lord who chooses to be a villain instead of a hero. There's a difference in him, the Doctor. He chooses not to be a hero and just to do his own thing and be selfish. And it's beautifully communicated through his mischievous grin. He's a mockery of the US president. He's such a funny character. He has so much charisma and humor, but he's also completely insane and so just so much of a threat. He's the Doctor's equal and kind of opposite. Again, the way he assassinates the cabinet and the news reporter, it kind of plays into the aspect of his kind of political manipulation. It's just incredible. Just to add on to that as well, oh no, I'll go about that in a minute. There are solemn, weighty character moments. The Master and the Doctor talk about the Time War, and they have this beautiful scene on the phone call where the Doctor reveals the Master's origin. No, that's the next scene. But we see them kind of catch up for the first time since the Time War, and it's revealed where the Master's been as we last saw him in the Doctor Who movie in 1996. He got revived by the Time Lords because he would be the perfect soldier, but he ran away and used the same chameleon arch technology like the Doctor did to make himself human so the Daleks wouldn't find him. That's how he survived as Professor Yana. And then you've got the Doctor trying to begging the Master to kind of listen, and it was such a great dynamic. And then of course you've got the Doctor revealing the Master's origins to Jack and Martha, and the first ever New Who depiction of Gallifrey. So the music a bit loud, just a little bit loud. But like we have the whole sequence of the TARDIS keys being forged so that they can basically go around unnoticed. They've got like a perception filter, which I thought was really cool. And we've also got how, the who the Master like is, a little bit about him, and actual visuals of Gallifrey for the first time in New Doctor Who. It's beautiful. It's such a great sequence with like the music, Gallifrey, our childhood, our home. And then you've got like connected plot points with the Torchwood spin-off, because Jack has reformed Torchwood, and I forgot about this. I got mixed up. The Doctor's rightfully mad because Torchwood is like a pretty evil organisation, but Jack reformed it completely from the ground up. New Torchwood as opposed to old Torchwood in the Doctor's honour, and I love the tension they have there. It's really interesting. We learn how Vivian Rook, the earlier scene where she was introduced with Lucy Saxon, a woman seduced by the Master, and a twisted parallel to Martha and Rose as his own companion, is... We learn how that whole scene was kind of relevant because Vivian Rook gets information to them needed to move the plot forward, and Lucy Saxon plays into the finale in a big way. It's called The Master as a Companion. Again, it's like the evil twin of the Doctor, basically. It's a really interesting dynamic. And then we've got the Valiant, Unit's flying airship. So Unit is in it as well. Again, Unit has very much been in the background up to this point. It isn't until Series 4 that Unit takes centre stage, but Unit from Classic Who has been in the background since Series 1. They've been appearing all over the place, and, we've got them, involved as, part of the world building. And then, of course, there's the cannibalized TARDIS turned into a paradox machine, which is, another highlight of the Master's, just absolute scheming, powerful, intelligent, threatening persona. He's just a great villain. And then you've got some neat references to Old Who I noted here. The Master's watching the Teletubbies, as opposed to the Clangers, which he did in the 70s. Jelly Babies. And then there's the red flare inside the Master's jacket, harking back to the original 70s Master costume, among other things I probably missed. But there's some nice references to the OG Master from the 70s and the 80s, for older fans. He's got the kind of Pertwee red flare, or not Pertwee, because Pertwee had something, but what was the actor? Anthony Ainley. He wasn't the original. Wasn't there another guy before him? I don't remember, but yeah, there's multiple different Master looks, and he had the kind of thing with the red flare inside the jacket, so it looks cool. But yeah, other than the CGI being a bit aged, the Valiant looks kind of crap. Everything in this episode is consistent and as brilliant as ever. Goated with the sauce. And last but not least, we have episode 13, Last of the Time Lords. Series 3 is the best Doctor Who series. Changed my mind. This finale is the climax of all the setup, and all the payoff happens here. That's literally what I've written. So you got the reveal of the Tocqueville's true nature, which is harrowing and clever. Who would have thought that one line about the diamond sky would be important? Which connects back to Utopia, and emphasising the fact that the Master wasn't just trapped back on Earth. He could actually go back between there and 100 trillion, which explains why he needed the paradox machine. Again, we also see the Doctor age to his full 900-ish, and, the stakes are high because the Doctor's kind of, powerless. And again, Martha, once again, is independent, hiding away in the slums. It's very tense, and it's, the ultimate challenge for her. The pacing was a bit slower than you'd expect in the beginning, but it really nicely sets the tone and establishes what happened in the year that never was, as well as create two new characters to ground the story and act as foils for Martha. Now, the ending is also clever, with so much subtle symbolism. The Doctor, like the Martha, played the long game and used his own weapon, Archangel, against him, not killing. They got the gun that could kill the Master with the 4 chemicals, which was a ploy, but telling him, I forgive you, was brilliantly foreshadowed, because there's this built thing, it's I have only one thing to say to you, and I know what that is. And whenever that's brought up, the Master's no, I'm not going to hear it. But the Tocqueville again demonstrate the duality of human nature and the true evil of the Master. Kind of like, Mr. Diagoras did back in Daleks Manhattan, because they kill for fun. They fulfill the worst potential of humanity, hunting for pleasure, like the future kind. And in that way, Professor Yana was actually right. The humans, it was feared that they would become like the future kind, and the Tocqueville are like the future kind. They are, this, these savage, degenerate versions of humans who have been twisted and manipulated by the Master to be even worse. Again, Jack is somehow as upbeat as ever. I guess he did wait 104 years for the Doctor, that's just his personality. But he gets his moments. The Jones family get their moments. It's nice how they have a scene where they're all talking about how they're going to kill the Master, just to show, psychologically how vengeful they've become after all this time, for a whole year, basically in hell, being his like servants and stuff. But the greatest plot twist is that in the end, it's Lucy Saxon who kills the Master. It's a really nice plot twist, because like it's subtly built up, but she seems to have this like nihilistic worldview after seeing the year 100 trillion. She has a bit of dialogue about explaining like her worldview after seeing what humanity would become the year 100 trillion. She just kind of embraces this kind of nihilism, and she's totally seduced by the Master. But there's also a very subtle implication that she was abused by the Master, because there's this one scene or two scenes where she walks in behind him and she's just got this very blank deadpan expression, like she's just become more and more detached from reality, very different from the Sound of Drums, and her face is bruised. She's got like bruises and marks, which would suggest that the Master is playing rough, I guess. And her mentality is really deceptive and vague, and I think deep down she realised after Sound of Drums how wrong everything was. But once we catch up with her a year later, like, she feels trapped. She feels like a prisoner, and I think that's why it's perfect that she's the one who kills the Master, because, you know, unlike the heroes, like Martha's mum, whose name I forget, sorry, great acting, by the way, on her part as well. Like, yeah, she's, like, has the gun, and she's gonna do it, but she stops, because she's, you know, coward, not killer. She wouldn't want to... She doesn't have what it takes to kill someone, because like it's just against her moral code, because she's a good person. But Lucy is like has nothing to lose, and it's fitting. I like it because it adds depth and unexpected kind of nuance to a character, which you wouldn't think of, and it also gives her more agency, because like the good guys aren't going to kill the Master. Like none of them are going to do it, even Jack. Even though he's like, you know, Doctor, what are we going to do with him? He's too dangerous. And before I continue, I do want to actually just reflect on how the series was built up, because actually no, I don't. No, save that for last. Yeah, I know I'm going on a bit, guys, but this won't be long, I promise. Next, two more things to talk about, okay? Before I go on to the last episode, character and series arc building. Okay. On top of balancing the characters and maintaining a consistent logic, although the Doctor becoming tiny in Super Age and somehow de-aging and flying in the prayer scene, what in the DEM was that? What in the Deus Ex Machina was that? That seems ridiculous. I have no idea what the hell the logic was there. Aside from that, the episode keeps a pretty consistent logic, right? The Master chooses to die, which is a great little twist. It's like, since he's faced with an eternity trapped in the TARDIS with the Doctor, because that's what the Doctor's going to do with him, he just chooses to die. He suppresses his regeneration because he would rather die than live trapped with the universe. And it's really sad, because the way the two perceive each other and their relationship and their species is so different, and it's such a tragedy. The whole time, the Doctor's been trying to speak to the Master, trying to get through to him, he's been trying to say the right words, but he never had the opportunity. And the point was, even though the Master just wouldn't listen, but the point was, they are the only two left. And he told him this, but he couldn't get the Master to listen. They are the only two of their whole species left in the entire universe. It's just them. His whole disposition when Martha met him, what is the thematic thread that ties back to the entire Star series here with the Doctor? It's loneliness. The Doctor's disposition was defined by loneliness when Martha met him. He lost Rose, he lost his entire race, he lost the war, everyone lost. And he sees an opportunity in the Master to fulfill the empty social life he had after Rose, to be friends, to have family with him, especially since the Master was now in the same situation. He was thinking, no matter what, the Master can be, you know, someone there to fill the void in his life, because the Doctor's been on his own for periods of time. But the Master can change that, because unlike these humans who travel them, the Master would be a permanent addition to the TARDIS. And they need each other. The Doctor thinks they need each other. They're the only two left. They have to cling to each other, because they are the only two members of their whole species left in the universe. And the problem is the Master just doesn't view it that way. He wants to win, no matter how spiteful. And despite everything, despite his villainy and his horror, despite everything he did, the Doctor forgives him, because he thinks, you know, like, we need each other. And, like, that's the thing that he's terrified of. He embraces him and he forgives him, and it's like, that's the thing that scares the Master. That's when he's, like, you know, freaking out. And he tries pulling, like, last chance and Toclafane to swarm and detonating the missiles, but he won't give up, because, again, we see another dimension of the Master's character. He will never self-sacrifice. He has to survive, which is why the Doctor outplays him once again. And, when the Master dies, and when we see the Doctor lose him, for pretty much the first time in the entire show, we see the 10th Doctor, the Doctor, being truly vulnerable. He is sobbing. We have never seen this. And to reach this point, it's the most, like, critical thing, because by losing the Master, he's lost his entire species again. He's entirely alone. Again, all the pain and all the, you know, suffering of having nothing but his own thoughts echoing in his head, of losing Rose, of losing the Time War against the Daleks, of losing all of his people, of the death of all the Time Lords, of losing the Master again. He had hope and a chance for a moment in the most twisted, desperate way, with the most twisted, evil possible chance of not being alone. Because of all the Time Lords to survive, the Master's got to be the most evil, right? But it's like, despite everything, the Doctor still thinks this is a chance. We can be together. We can, you know, live without being alone. But no, the Master denies him that. And it's like the most tragic thing, because he just can't even handle it. And his reaction is even more emotional than when he lost Rose. It's even more. And I think that speaks volumes of just about how impactful the Time War is. Because it was like the genocide of his whole species, you know? I don't need to go on about this. The point is, the writing and the way the characters interact is absolutely phenomenal. And to finish off about the series finale, the way everything is tied up and the loose ends tied up is nice. It's really nicely directed, emotional, you know, mostly well-paced thing. But the way the 3 finale episodes brought all of the threads together is actually brilliant. When Jack says his goodbye, we get a hint that he is actually the face of Bo, which explains how he knew about Yana, okay? Utopia, Sound the Drums, and Last of the Time Lords obviously in S tier. Between these 3, we get references obviously to the Fob Watch from Human Nature and Family of Blood. We get a reference to Lazarus, because the Master was behind that. And, you know, same with 42, we've got those scenes where, you know, Mr. Saxon's people were, like, you know, interrogating the Jones. And, of course, the technology and the laser screwdriver is the same as the Lazarus machine, you know? I'm trying to remember what else is referenced. 42, Lazarus, both of these parts all referenced with, like, plot devices and stuff, right? Like the Fob Watch. Again, the Doctor and Martha's relationship goes back to Smith and Jones, Shakespeare Code, Gridlock, and Lazarus Experiment. All of that is used to build up the finale effectively. It's all important. Mr. Saxon references go all the way back to Series 1. The first reference to Mr. Saxon was actually in The Christmas Invasion, which was the first Tennant episode. And apparently that was when he first emerged. It was around then, so he's been around since then. He was there, behind the scenes, all throughout Series 2. And there were some Mr. Saxon references, I think, in, like, Smith and Jones or something like that. I can't really remember. But yeah, there's not any explicit connections with the Dalek episodes or Blink. But, like, so much of the character arc and development plays into it. And it's stuff from previous seasons, as well as, you know... Oh, I moved one. I was wondering why I moved. Stuff from previous seasons, as well as Series 3 or Time. It's just so well built up and connected. But anyway, regardless of all of that, finally at last, we get Martha's character arc ending and being resolved. She's gone through the ultimate test of faith, and she's come out, you know... not unscathed. She's made it, she survived, and everything worked itself out in the end. But she makes a selfless choice to go to her family because she is a doctor, or at least a medical student, okay? And they have immense trauma as one of the very few people, after the paradox machine was broken and time reset and a year rebound, there are very few people, only like a few unit operatives, as well as all these characters, who remembered what happened and who have experienced it. So that trauma is kind of self-contained, and Martha needs to be there for them because, you know, no one else is going to understand, because they would think they were crazy. And she has this beautiful but bittersweet anecdote about getting out, this analogy, because she's become so obsessed with the Doctor, she's realised as well their relationship is just not going to work out, so she needs to go. But what I love about Martha is that she's not, like, so self-absorbed she sees any decision as black and white or final. And she's smart, she's foresighted. She understands the bigger picture after meeting Jack as well, and she can kind of see her own future with the Doctor, because Jack's like a companion who he had before. So she leaves her phone with the Doctor so they can stay in touch. I'll see you again, mister. And it's a happy ending, because it's not like a sad goodbye that's like final. It's like she's just leaving for a while, okay? She's decided she can't keep up with this regular thing, and she's got a responsibility for a friend. She's got multiple reasons to get out, but she doesn't want to just never see the Doctor again. It's not like, I don't want to see you again. She does, so it feels earned and earnest. And Freema Agyeman's performance is so on point in that final scene. It is so good. So that's a 10 out of 10. That's another S tier. As you can tell, guys, I'm a bit of a Doctor Who Series 3 simp, but genuinely, I've spent time thinking about it. Just the craft of this show is just phenomenal. It is peak TV. It's out there with Breaking Bad, as far as I'm concerned. Prove me wrong if you want, but my god, there's so much I can say about it. Anyway, gotta wrap it up now with the Christmas special, but before we continue, chat, Livy, welcome to the stream. How are you doing? I feel like I started this stream a bit too early because I anticipated needing a really long time, but because it's just been me in chat, this episode's been a bit shorter, and we're gonna finish like an hour and a half earlier than I would have done if there was someone else in voice chat with me. I was started at 3 thinking this is going to go until 7. It's almost 6 and we're basically done. So, I should have started this a bit later. Oh well. But yeah. Interesting though, Ethan. Interesting. You started watching Doctor Who in 2018? Oh yeah. Listen, you two. We're at the edge of the universe. Literally. The end of knowledge and time itself. And here you are, busy blogging. I know I paraphrase, but he says that the, like, limit or frontier of knowledge or something. The actor who played Chanther wants to play the fortune teller in Turn Left. Nice! Dude, she's so talented. That's great. You know you're a gamer when you're walking home in the sunshine and your eyes are just like, does not compute. Yeah, I've had that with the sun. It's like, it's so bright. It's a really sunny day today. Laser screwdriver. Who'd have Sonic? Great, I just spilled liquid right in the middle of my trousers. That's a hydration L. People of the Earth, please attend carefully. Basically, end of the world. Dude. Yeah. There's so many good lines. And yes, Voyage of the Damned, we'll be doing this last. Yeah. This is a fun fact. Martha to this day is the only companion throughout all of New Who that is alive. Alive in this universe or can see the Doctor without burning up. Oh my god, yeah. When you think about the fates of the companions, Martha had one of the best. Rose was trapped in a parallel universe. Donna had her memory wiped with the risk of literally exploding if she ever sees the Doctor again. I wonder how they're going to resolve that in the new episode. Amy and Rory were killed by the angels. Clara was killed by the Raven, even though she cheated a little time bubble. Like she's dead. They're all dead. Rory, Amy, and Clara are all dead. Bill is kind of dead, but not really. She got a kind of Astrid treatment and is like freely traveling the stars, like as in a new life. I can't remember the rest, but like Martha just got to leave. She just got to chill, being chilling. But yeah. I mean, everyone dies in the end, but you know they're still living happily, I think. But yeah, Voyage of the Damned. If we want to talk about Voyage of the Damned, we can do that now. The last episode. Man, I've been real generous with these, I gotta say. Do you know what, guys? I think my enthusiasm and my generosity is so strong, I need to qualify this tier list. Because I didn't even use the bad category. So let's be a bit more critical. And if I just move everything down, this changes things up quite a bit, doesn't it? Because now I've got room for the absolute GOAT. You gotta remember, there's very few episodes that deserve the absolute GOAT category. But first, Voyage of the Damned. Where are we putting it? The new theme introduced in Voyage of the Damned. Yeah, sure, we can talk about it for a minute. I'm going to have to, like, mute this or distort the audio to monetize the stream after it's uploaded. But like with the intro music, I'll play a bit of it now. I love that for the Doctor Who... you got the original Doctor Who theme, right? For series 1 to 3. Which is classic. Banger. Nice. But then you get the Doctor Who series 4 theme, which was introduced in Voyage of the Damned. It's like a different arrangement. They added different instruments, different, you know, sounds. It goes hard. Anyway, back to the actual playlist I'm supposed to be using, though. I realised we were in the middle of a song there. Which one was it? It was one of the Doki Doki ones. Which one was it? I can't remember where we were. Hold on. I gotta continue the song. I gotta do it, man. What song was it? Oh, it was actually from the original. It wasn't Plus, it was I Still Love You. There we go. Alright, back on shuffle. As we were with the music I can use without getting copy striked. Anyway, but yeah, yeah, the intro music's a banger. We're gonna be hearing a lot more. I'm probably gonna use it for the intro of the next stream. Oh, there's a different one for Voyage of the Damned in Series 4. I didn't even realise. Nice. Alright. Anyway, but speaking of Voyage of the Damned. So Voyage of the Damned, the Doctor's back on his own. But he doesn't have all that emotional baggage anymore. This is the first time we see that confident, happy-go-lucky Doctor. The one who isn't really focused, and deep down still does have it, but like isn't really like fussed about the baggage of Rose and the Time War anymore. He's kind of like just freely living life. He's doing his own thing. He's just trying to, you know, move on and have a good time. And it's good. There's a bit of foreshadowing for Time Lord Victorious, because there's a negative side to that confidence, of course. But yeah, now, if I'm being honest, like a lot of Christmas specials, this one never really struck me as that good. I'm personally not a fan of the Titanic parody elements and the romantic tropes that always seem to follow the 10th Doctor. Like, him having so much Riz, it just gets so weary. Like, why does he need a love interest every single time? It's just, I don't know, it wears out. But this episode was actually solid. It was okay. It seems a bit slow, because it's a feature length. It's like an hour and 15 minutes. It's 75 minutes, same as the Bad Batch premiere, but it just seems a bit slow because of that. The pace is much needed after the bombastic finale and Time Crash, if you've watched that, which is excellent. But like, it's a nice slow down where you can really relax. Story-wise, you know, it makes sense. All the pieces connect. The way elements are subtly introduced, like the host and Max Capricorn, are great. Astrid's motivation makes for a consistent companion-like character, and all the others get their fair share of screen time, from Banakafalata to Mr. Copper. I like all of the cast of this episode. Again, like with The Impossible Planet, and unlike 42, they actually are developed and they get a good amount of screen time and dialogue to really make it clear what they're like, you know, before and after they meet the Doctor and everything. You know, none of them feel out of place. It's a diverse cast, you know, representation-wise, character-wise, and each of their own backstories and motivations feel fleshed out, and they all connect into this wider dystopian kind of Stowe backstory, because Cyborg Rights is a repeated thing that connects with unrelated characters. Banakafalata and Max Capricorn, and like they all seem to be in this kind of cycle of like rule, abuse, and neglect, of kind of like corporate, kind of like the 1930s New York. Like a lot of them are just like, you know, barely getting by and struggling, and then the people on the top, like Rixton, are just like really not that great as a person. The humor was balanced nicely with the serious moments, and the bridge scene in particular was excellent. I think the bridge scene was one of the best scenes. It was the peak of the episode. High stakes, lots of action, great character moments. There's not a lot else to say that isn't consistent with most Who episodes. The CGI was definitely better than the Valiant in the previous episode, so I guess that stepped up. The other VFX and sound effects were great. The cinematography was also really clever, like the Earth crossfading into a globe at the end, the Max Capricorn portrait falling and burning, lots of good like symbolism and stuff. The Doctor's character here is interesting too. This feels like the first time we see him as his confident self since the Time War, with bravado and boldness. Again, he literally introduces himself. It's the iconic scene. It's like, I'm the Doctor. I'm over 900 years old. I'm from the planet Gallifrey, the constellation Nick established, and I'm here to save all your lives. And 6 billion people down below, whatever he says. It's like, it's a scene that is often used, like, it's the Doctor introduction scene, and it's like, oh, this is him, and he's, like, proud. And there's, like, just a hint about the time of Victorious, because he and Mr. Copper talk about choosing who would live and who would die. And there's a bit of, like, I don't know, interesting philosophy there. I love the ending, though. Like, it's really sad how some characters die, and then it's really, like, nice how some characters live. Like, Mr. Copper especially. I love how he actually goes on to be important later, and is, like, he has, again, I just love his whole thing of, like, not knowing Earth history properly, and, like, getting to live there in the end, and, like, Bana Kafalata being, like, a cyborg and saving them all. I don't know, there's just such a cool... So cool. And even Rickson gets the Sonic. That's surprising. It's like, man, the Doctor actually gave the Sonic away. That's risky. Anyway, but yeah, the host flying... Okay, so other than some bizarre scenes, like the host flying the Doctor up to the bridge, like, how come he was the next authority? How did he not crush his head on the impact of the bridge's floor? Like, why did that shoot lead directly onto the bridge? It was so cheesy and random. Again, the slow-mo before Astrid's sacrifice was pretty cringeworthy. And Astrid herself, I don't know, I think she was, like, passable for a one-episode companion, but she's got nothing on Sally Sparrow. She was good, but I don't know. Also, don't know who Kylie Minogue is. Like, apparently that was, like, a special feature. It's, like, starring Kylie Minogue. And I'm like, who is that? I'm gonna look that up now. I don't know if she's, like, famous for something else. Who is Kylie Minogue? High-selling female Australian artist of all time. Singer, songwriter, and actress. Oh. It's cool that she was an Aussie. Again, diverse cast. Very nice. Mixing it up. Oh, she's a musician. Okay. Nice. Well, anyway, but yeah, she was cool. I'm just a Sally simp. So, Voyage of the Damned, I'm gonna give okay. I don't know, like, it just feels like it's missing something. Maybe it's just because it's like a really cheesy Christmas episode, but I feel like it's nowhere near as good. It's not as good as Smith or Jones or the Lazarus Experiment, but definitely up there with the Shakespeare Code. So, with all that out of the way, oh, hello. Do you remember Cat and Dog? Yes, I do. Why is your username displaying after your messages? How are you doing that? Are you guys seeing this? I'm seeing your messages on the left of your username, rather than on the right. That's really strange. Okay, I think it's just the mobile that's bugged out, because it looks fine on here. I can't read your username. I can tell that's like Arabic or something. Wait, can I translate that? Can I translate that? Huh? Oh, come on, give me the option. No? I want to translate this if I can. But anyway. But yeah, is that you? Cat and Dog? What the dog doing? Welcome back. Thank you for joining, dude. I'm not getting anything on there. I'm not going to worry about that. Okay. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. Rip Cat and Dog. That's okay, dude. I don't know what to call you, because I have no idea how to pronounce that. Really sorry. But, like, you can name yourself whatever. It's your choice, man. It's up to you. Or woman. I actually don't even know if you're a man or a woman. Or neither. You know, it's 2023. But yeah, like, I actually, that's really cool, dude. That was it, Ethan. Yeah, you got the quotation right. You got a problem with that? No. In that case, Alonzi. Oh yes, and Alonzi Alonso finally paid off. That was something that, like, has been planned since, like, the Series 2 finale. Like, you really wonder how much of the 4 series that Russell T planned, because there was so much in, like, Series 3 and 4 that goes back to Series 1 and 2, and it's like, how did he plan all of this? They didn't even know if they would get another series. And it's just incredible. But yeah, he's like, no, your name's Alonso, and he's like, he gets to finally say it. Because he couldn't say it in Torchwood. But yeah. Anyway. So, I'm going to delete this now, because I don't need it anymore. Which episodes deserve the GOAT tier? There's only one episode that I don't actually like. There's 2 which are like, and all the rest are good, if not amazing. Fantastic. But you know what the absolute GOAT episodes are? It's a tough choice. But I gotta think, which episodes literally could not be better? Daleks Manhattan, Evolution of the Daleks, and a Blink. I think that's my final tier list. I think there were very slight, more nitpicky issues I could pick out with the others. And Ethan kind of opened up my eyes. Gridlock, actually, the central concept and premise maybe could have been a bit more interesting. The macro were underdeveloped. The whole, like, what's the symbolism of the motorway? You know, it's great social commentary, I guess, but the macro, man, they could have had a bit more agency. They could have been like a scheme where the macro are actually, like... Because the macro were never resolved. They were just left down there. Like, what happened to the macro? They were really sidelined. But, like... And, you know, I thought Family of Blood, Sound of Drums, and Last of Time... I did have slight nitpicks for all of them, I think. But, like, if we're really pushing the limits here, I don't think I could improve these 3 episodes. I know I did technically have nitpicks for all of them, but they were even more minor. And these 3 episodes in particular, I just love, because Sally Sparrow, Daleks, the story arc as well, the way it builds in the series, as well as just the individual episode, they're all excellent. But I think if I really had to pick, those are the GOAT tier. And that is my final tier list. So I'm going to download this. And I'm gonna go paste this image onto the Discord and share it. And that is my tier list. We're done. That's the end, guys. That is my Doctor Who Series 3 tier list, my full in-depth review of all of them. Kind of like I did with Ambience with Fazbear Fries, it's the style. What I should do is timestamp my discussion of each episode, but who's got that kind of time? Maybe later, maybe soon. But yeah, yeah, the jokes out of Army of Ghosts. But speaking of which, Series 4 should be happening in a few weeks, couple months, I don't know, sooner or later. And I don't know who'll be joining me for that, but hopefully someone, because this stream ended up a bit short. I don't know what I'm going to do now. Maybe I could finally go record that continuity error video. But yeah, I don't know what to do now. I think that's it. Is there anything you guys want to say before I end the stream? Because I'm done. I've said everything. I've said my bit. Do you agree, disagree with the tier list? Tell you what, guys. If you want, feel free to go ahead and share your tier list of your own Doctor Who series in the Discord, alright? Because I'm heading over there right now, going to the Hydration Nation, okay? And I'm putting it, hell yeah. Hell yeah. You know what? I'm not going to start a thread, I'm just going to drop it in here. I know what's going on with that. Where were we talking about Doctor Who before? Was it discussion 3? I'm just gonna put it in discussion 1, I guess. Was this even on the same server? Oh, I think we were on a different server. The Swim, and Ethan and I were talking about Doctor Who. Yeah, it was literally on a different friggin' server. I was just in discussion 1. My Doctor Who, hashtag Doctor Who Series 3 tier list. There we go. And I'm just going to post this here. That is my final tier list. I'm sure I could be convinced to change some things, but it's very difficult because they're all just so good. Even 42, I wouldn't strictly call it bad, but it's up there, man. It's up there. Anyway, that's it, guys. Stream's over. I don't know what else to do. We've been going for 2 hours and 50 minutes. I feel like we should push 3 hours. I could probably go for a few more minutes. If you guys have anything else you want to talk about. Hell yeah, Ethan. The intro sting is good. Ethan, what would you put on your tier list? I'm just curious. You said you hadn't rewatched some of the episodes in a very long time. You hadn't seen all of them, so like you're not fresh. But out of the episodes that you have seen, I'm also going to cut the music here, I think, because that's a perfect place to end it. But like, out of the episodes you have seen, what would you put on your list? That was a bad idea. If I do this, it will say, right? I mean, I've got the image saved. But, like, which ones have you seen, and what would you... I'm just curious. You don't have to tell me. If you want to just post it in here later, or not bother, or whatever. Where did we talk about it, though? Was it on Shrine of Ambience? It was me, Swim, and Ethan. We were talking about Doctor Who. I think it was on Shrine of Ambience. That's strange. Movie TV discussion? Bro, where were we talking about this? Maybe it was here. Oh, no, it was over here. It was in discussion 1. Yeah, no, I put it in the right place. We just moved on for a bit. But yeah, you would put Smith and Jones and Shakespeare Code in Fantastic, Gridlock in Great, and the 3-part finale split between Fantastic and Go. So... if I just do this. you would have... Hold on, this is... Oh, I've got to go find them. Smith & Jones in Fantastic with Shakespeare Code. Gridlock in Great. Or Good, whatever. And then... Let me just drag all these in if I can find them. Topia, Lazarus, Sound of Drums, 42, Daleks Manhattan, Family of Blood, Blink. Is that all of them? I'm just going to put all of the ones I'm not using in bad. I'm not saying they're bad, it's just that I'm not using them. Let me get this again. So you would put Smith & Jones, Shakespeare Code and Fantastic, Gridlock in Good. 3-part for I split between Fantastic and Goat. Well, all three of them, like on both, or would you like have one of them here and then two of them there, like this or something? Human Nature and Family Blood in Goat. That is based. Blink in Fantastic, yeah. Sorry, my instincts automatically made me put it in Goat. And Voyage of the Damned in Fantastic. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Where is it? Voyage of the Damned. Bro, I'm literally blind. I can't see it. Where's the Voyage of the Damned? Hello? I can't see it. Oh, there it is. You'd have that in Fantastic. It's great, but there's been better Christmas specials. I agree. So you haven't... Wait, you haven't seen the Dalek two-parter? These two... You not having seen these two is, like, fine. But you haven't seen Daleks in an Evolution. Ah, fair enough. Fair enough. Dude, watch this two-parter already. I can't believe you've not seen that. You have seen it. You forgot. Bruh. I think you would probably put 42 and the Lazarus Experiment in okay. But yeah, no, if you've seen these, come on, dude. Surely it's one of the top 2 tiers. I mean, we just talked about them. But anyway, yeah. But yeah, there's nothing else for me to say. I'll tell you what, though. I did have a thought. Part 1 Fantastic, Part 2 and Goat. Yeah, that's valid. That tracks. So is this your tier list? Okay, I can just remove these if you want. That's Ethan's tier list. Perfectly respectable. Lazarus and Good. I think you have seen them all. You just don't remember them. This is the most forgettable episode. I think you've seen all of them. You just don't remember it. That is a base tier list. But yeah. Thank you for that. Very interesting. You don't think you've seen 42 at all? Well, if you say so. But that's the end, guys. So, Ethan, I believe you also won the QOTD because you were the only one who gave an answer. I think you win by default because you're an epic big boy. You get a tag. So, guys, go check out True Player. Honestly, you deserve it for all your support on the stream anyway. You're like the only person who watched the whole way through, and I really appreciate that. Also, guys, if you haven't seen this already, do. It's absolutely mind-boggling. I'm going to watch it again. I'm going to give this man his watch time. Because it is absolutely remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable what he's done with Ultimate Custom Night. Oh, fuck off. Ryan, no. Why? One other thing I want to add, which might be pertinent to the rest of my viewers and my wider subscriber base that you guys might find interesting, is that quote. They always survive, even when I lose everything. I was thinking about this and the Doctor's relationship with the Daleks, and how this might apply to Five Nights at Freddy's. Because, I mean, Afton and everyone else, think about it. And I actually did write in to myself in some notes a while ago, something I never got around to posting, which was a Reddit post that got me thinking about why bringing characters from the dead back is such a problem for writers, because there's so many ways to do it in a way that are actually effective. And it got me thinking, you know, could William Afton have been brought back in Security Breach even, in a way that didn't just destroy all the value of the story. I don't know, maybe another universe. But this idea of someone always coming back and having that be a running theme intended, I don't know. That's interesting, and it was poorly executed with Springtrap, but I wonder if there could have been a good story in there. Doesn't matter now, but yeah, this, I don't know if I ever shared this, so I'm gonna go post that on Discord, I think, because it's interesting. I gotta admit, it's pretty interesting. Because there's so many ways to bring characters back from the dead in a way that doesn't ruin the story. But writers just seem to struggle with this. And I wrote out a whole load of ideas I had, and I'm not even a writer. I have very little writing skill or experience, but I'll talk about this on the Discord. I think that'll be an interesting conversation. Series 11 to 13 had no Christmas specials, and absolutely no reference to the Time War. Oh, God, yeah. You can tell Series 11 to 13... I don't want to talk about it now, but there's a reason I'm not rewatching any of those. First of all, that was recently, and I remember it. And secondly, I don't want to remember it, because they were god-awful. That whole era of Doctor Who just felt empty and soulless, because it lost all of the charm and elements that kind of made Doctor Who what it is. There was no Christmas specials. There was no reference to Time War. There didn't need to be. But it's like, the world just felt like... The world building had been kind of tossed aside, and like... You know, there was a lack of familiarity and all this new stuff, but it was also bland. Everything about Series M was just bland. It just felt so bland. That's the best way to describe it. And Series 12 was just a Russell T ripoff. All of the great things that came out of that were squandered, and it was all just copy-pasted from the Russell T era. And then Series 13 was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what the actual fuck is happening? That was like Moffat-inspired, I guess, with all the Flux bullshit. It was just such a rubbish era of Doctor Who, and it's really unfortunate because it did have its moments and it did have highlights and it did have potential, but it did not come together. And I'm glad it's past us now. I think, you know, we've had the dark times. We're going back to something that's hopefully going to be really good. Doctor Who can't always be the best TV show ever, guys. It's going to have peaks and troughs. It can't always be amazing, and that's totally okay. But man, it really fell off. Exactly, Ethan, yeah. The Whittaker era definitely felt just off in general. Again, it felt like she wasn't the Doctor. I don't think it's Jodie's acting so much as a poor casting choice. She just doesn't feel like the Doctor. It's not because she's a woman. I'm not saying there can't be a female Doctor. Of course there can. There's an obvious precedent for that. But I really feel like she would have been better as a companion or something. Like, she was just kind of the wrong person cast. Who's the woman who was like the what was it called? The rogue Doctor who was introduced in Series 12. That whole story arc was so dumb, and they should have made it like a parallel universe. That would have been really interesting. But she had so much charisma and gravitas. She would have been an excellent 13th Doctor instead of Whittaker, honestly. I forget who she is, her name, but like the fugitive Doctor. No, the fugitive Doctor was really interesting. She had way less screen time. She was immediately more clearly the Doctor. The way she behaved, her kind of charisma and you know, personality and kind of gravitas, she was so much clearly immediately the Doctor. You got the Doctor vibe from her. Whittaker didn't have any of that, not even by the end of her run, which is just kind of sad, to be honest. It's just really sad. Also, yeah, she did some things which were really just, like, out of character. It was like an imposter, honestly. It felt weird. There were so many things. I honestly forgot Tim Shaw. That whole thing was so fucking dumb as well. It's not funny. It's just unmemorable, the whole thing. I'm happy to just skip it and pretend it didn't happen. Can we just say that, like, it was a dream or something? Nah, I'm not gonna be mean, but like, it sucked. It was the Star Wars sequels of Doctor Who. It was the Security Breach of Doctor Who. Anyway, guys, the stream is over. I'm gonna be talking unpopular opinions on the Discord. I'm gonna be praising my man True for being an absolutely unbeatable Giga Chad, and thank you for joining me this stream. You could have been a voice chat, dude. You could have joined voice chat for this, but it doesn't matter now. Yeah, there's nothing else I have to say. I'm gonna stop dragging this out. Thank you so much for watching. And if there's anything more you want to talk about, you guys know where to find me. More streams coming. We'll cover Series 4 sooner or later. Stay hydrated.